Must be time to start. Randy just got here.
Yeah, Randy got here.
Just got here.
TikTok.
I'd like to call the meeting of the Morrison County Board of Commissioners to order. Please stand for the pledge if you're able. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the county board meeting this morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Approval of the county board minutes.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second for board minute approval. Further discussion, gentlemen. Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Any additions or deletions to the agenda?
There is. The updated agenda is on the screen there, but there was a deletion of the Sheriff's Report, Public Works, and Live Better, Live Longer report.
All right. anything
So moved.
else?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. We have our auditor's report regarding the Lake Improvement District. Morning,
Good
Deb.
morning.
Morning, Deb. Morning.
I'm going to pass around the updated order that we would be approving if you decide to implement the Lake Chaminade Lake Improvement District. So what you're here today to discuss is whether or not you want to implement the Lake Improvement District.
And to recap, Mr. Chair, if I could,
You may.
the request came in from the Lake Association, the Fish Trap Lake Association. Quite some time ago, they've been working on that. I know a representative is here from the lake that worked on that. The process went forward. They developed a plan in which they would outline in generic terms the different projects or purposes of the Lake Improvement District and what they would move forward with in the future years. The initial assessment was set at, was it $35 per parcel?
$35 per
Riparian owner parcel. And the public hearing was held on the 23rd of May, on Saturday the 23rd, up in Scandia Valley area. We had about 80 participants. There were 23 that spoke, and you all attended, and we all attended that meeting and gathered the input. There was correspondence. The DNR has weighed in. You've seen all of that information as well. And we're here today as a, relatively final step
Right.
to consider the enactment or the establishment of that bid.
All right, thanks, Deb.
Mr. Chair, I don't mean to put the cart
Yes,
before the
Commissioner,
horse,
yes.
but I heard Ms. Gruber state $35, I believe. Would that, should this pass, is that $35 for the year 2015,
2016,
for the year 2016?
correct.
Okay, very good, very good, thank you.
Mr. Chair, and then
Yes,
every year
Commissioner.
they come into the county board with a budget.
Correct.
Other
Mr. Chair,
questions?
if
Yes,
I may,
Commissioner.
this is a lot more information here, and why is this so much, and I know why, but I thought you just let the people know why there's a lot more information on this one.
Could
Right.
you speak louder, please, and put the microphones in the
All right. The question I had is, this lid is, the information that's for this improvement district, there's a lot more information on this one than there was on other lids, and I just wanted her to explain why.
Yeah, this lid actually includes a lot more problem issues than our prior lids did, and mainly that's because we have not implemented a lid for many years, and since then, there have been many issues come to light. Plus, we want to make sure that when we implement this lid, it includes all the possible problems that they're going to be dealing with. In order to implement an issue or deal with an issue, it has to be in your management plan. If it's not in the plan, you would have to come back and hold another public hearing in order to update your plan and deal with that issue. So what they're doing is being proactive, including all the possible issues that they see they're going to need to deal with in the near future.
Thank you.
All right. Other questions, gentlemen?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Johnski?
So 2 years go by, or should this be enacted? 3 years go by, 5 years go by, and there's something new that the lid would like to do that is not in this. Would that be a modification then done?
Yes, they should be holding a public hearing to modify their plan.
Very good.
question, meaning they should be?
Yes.
They should be, or are we required to hold a public
We would be
hearing?
required to be involved in that,
Okay.
and also the DNR and pollution control, the whole ball of wax
Very
like we
good.
just did.
I was wondering who they was. I just-
Thus, it would not be a should, it would be a, there would be a public hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mike.
Just for clarification, at the meeting, some people were concerned about, that it could go up to $300 a year for their thing. It needs to come to the county every year for approval on what your expenditures are gonna be, right? So. okay.
Yeah. Initially, their board is going to approve the budget, so everybody involved in the lid can go to the board meetings. And if it passes their board meeting, it's gonna come to our board meeting. So we see those budgets also. So there's a couple of phases it's gonna go through before it passes.
Commissioner Johnson, were you going to?
No.
Well, and one more thing of clarification. They annually have to report to us as a county board
Right.
how they spent the money, and they spent it utilizing it on the criteria that is in the
Correct.
lid.
They will also be overseen by Soil and Water District, which is new. All of our lid districts will be overseen by the Soil and Water District from this point forward, something new we just implemented this spring.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I would
Commissioner
make a
Johnson.
motion on that, because I know we've got the other lake improvement districts in Morrison County, and they do a wonderful job with what they, with what they charge them. They do a good job on the lake, so.
I have a motion on the floor
I'll second it.
and a second. Further discussion. Having heard none, I think it's very important that the lake owners have taken these kind of steps to really address the lake environment. As I mentioned at the public hearing here a couple weeks back, and considering we have a legislator sitting here in the audience, I mentioned at the public hearing that I think it's really important, and I think Lake Owners Association need to organize, to really push our legislature to enact funding, whether it's on boat licenses, whether it's on fishing licenses, I don't know what it is, where everyone who lives in the state and utilizes these wonderful resources becomes responsible for those resources, not just on the back of the property owners, because ultimately, they're taxed higher to live there, and they're kind of taking on the burden of what it is to protect the lake. And I think it's everybody's responsibility. Just needed to say that, so. Other questions, gentlemen? Having heard no further questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Oh, this is a roll call, isn't it? Is it a roll call?
Yeah, sorry.
It is a roll call.
I'll
All
wake
right.
up.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's right. All right, thank you, Deb.
Yep.
We have the planning and zoning report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Good morning, Darren.
Okay, I have several items for you today.
You have a full packet.
I do. The first one is to consider the conditional use permit request for Gerard Waldock. This is to expand to a Tier 2 large-scale dairy feedlot. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this conditional use permit with the following conditions: abide by local and state law, notify road authority when hauling manure out during road restrictions, and abide by the Good Neighbor Plan.
I would so move on that, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
Mr. Chair, for the record, I would just like to say that I'm very familiar with this property and with the owners, good operators, clean operators, good operation, and I just see no reason why this would not go through.
Other reports from the board? Very good. Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yes.
Next item is to consider the rezone request for Christopher Rudolph. And as a reminder, this is to rezone a 40-acre parcel of land from residential to agriculture for the purpose of keeping animals. This also was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission at their meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'll move on this one.
I'll
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Further discussion. Please explain a little bit, where is this at? I was unable to make this meeting, so.
This is in Green Prairie Township, so it is just on the west end of the city of Little Falls. It's really adjacent to the city of Little Falls on the west side of the city, kind of by the zoo. Kind
Oh,
of
okay,
back by
okay.
the zoo.
And that would be your district, Bud?
No,
No, it's yours.
Green Prairie, yeah, no, it's
Green.
great, yeah, yeah, so.
Right
Oh,
across
would
the
be,
road from mine.
where is it at exactly? I'm sorry.
I don't have an aerial,
It's by
I don't
Pine
think,
Grove Park.
but it's by
Mr.
Pine
Chair,
Grove Park.
with that
kind of on the
ballpark,
west.
Down on the
It's
left,
kind
past
of
the.
kitty corner
Now I
across
know.
the road.
We drove
from-
by there
Yes,
when we
did.
went by
Yeah,
the path.
yep.
that way. Very good, I just wanted to.
And Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
may, we were at the planning commission. A lot of the folks in that area had no idea that it wasn't even agriculture. They've had animals in there for many, many years, and
Okay.
it just,
Yeah.
now we're
Okay.
getting it straightened out finally.
yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you for answering that for me. Other discussion, gentlemen? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. The next one is to consider the conditional use permit request for Peter and Mary Alice Faust. This is to expand to a Tier 2 large-scale dairy feedlot and to modify a manure pit within the Shoreland zoning district. This did receive a variance prior to coming forward for a conditional use permit. The Planning Commission did recommend approval with the following conditions: abide by local and state law, notify road authority when hauling manure out during road restrictions, and abide by the good neighbor plan.
So moved.
Second,
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I was at that meeting, and my understanding is this pit will be in better shape than what the old pit is. It's got a liner and everything in it, and so this will be real good for you.
Be an improvement?
Yep.
Be a huge improvement, I think. Yeah.
It's got
I
a
mean,
liner, it's got the liner and stuff where the other one doesn't.
Just
So-
adding the liner would be,
Yeah.
to me, the huge improvement.
Yep, so.
Other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Okay, next one, to consider the interim use permit request for Jerian and Sandra Palo. This is to establish a retreat center. The Planning Commission did recommend approval with the following conditions. Rental of the retreat center shall be short-term, not to exceed 1 week. Abide by all applicable state and local laws in regards to retreat center, wellness facilities, and overnight accommodations. And the interim use permit shall terminate at the time the lessee, which is Amy Kowalczyk, which is not me, it is a different
I know
one.
Amy. I know Amy.
I don't want to refer to myself in the third person. Discontinues utilization of these facilities, or the current property owner, which is Jerry and Palo, ceases to own the property, whichever occurs first.
And for discussion, I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
And, Mr. Chair, this is, I believe, is our first interim permit
It is.
issued for the county.
Yes.
And not only that, but the reason we're doing this is part of our ordinance. If you could explain that, please.
Correct. So we adopted the interim use permit not too long ago. And this kind of expands some uses in some of the zoning districts with a little bit more control. The difference between an interim use permit, the biggest difference between an interim use permit and a conditional use permit is interim permits are finite. You put a time limit on them. In this case, that is condition 3. It doesn't have to be an actual date, but it has to be either an event or a time frame. Conditional use permits run with the land, interim use permits do not. So that's kind of the main difference. And this is one of the uses in the ag zoning district that is allowed with, retreat centers are one of the uses that are allowed in the ag zoning district under an interim use permit.
Thank you.
Other questions, gentlemen, or feedback?
Chair, Amy,
Commissioner
the
Wilson?
only question I had on that really was when it goes away, if Amy, so Amy really couldn't sell it or anything without coming back here to
Well,
get another permit, correct?
Amy doesn't own the property, Mr. Palo does.
Right.
And so the applicant would always be the property owner. However, this is kind of a unique situation in which the property owner is not going to be running the retreat center. He's going to be leasing that to someone else to run it. And so this is kind of a unique situation. All of the information that was provided in the application is based on how Amy is going to run this facility. And so having a different lessee in there might change the dynamic of this, and so the spirit in which this is being granted is based on the scope of what she's going to provide there, and so then it would, if someone else wanted to do that, then yes, the board would be taking another look at that and approving that on its own merits.
Thus, an interim use permit.
Correct.
And gentlemen, I believe some of us were at the interim use permit training when we looked at that, and we had some questions about that before we had heard about it, and it's just such a nice option, because then who knows someone who buys the land and then a use continues, but then that use can somehow change a little, and no one knows what's happening, so this is a good deal. Yep, very good. Other questions? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And he's
Thanks,
he's
Darren.
leaving.
Hi, Darren.
And the last item I have, the last item I have is to consider the citizen petition for an environmental assessment worksheet for Scenic View LLC, and adopt the appropriate corresponding resolution to grant or deny the citizen request for an EAW. Within your packet, you have two resolutions, one with findings to grant the EAW and one to deny. So this is your time to discuss and approve or adopt one of the other resolutions.
Again, for your consideration, I'll make a motion
Commissioner Winter?
for discussion, further discussion.
Do you have to
You
make a
may have to
motion
make
to
a
deny
motion
it,
to
or-
approve or deny
Okay,
before
I'll
we
make
do
a
further
motion to
discussion.
approve. I'll make a motion to approve for further discussions.
I have a motion on the floor.
Approve the AW?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, the motion is to approve.
Yes. Motion to approve. I do not have a second. Having not heard a second, let's discuss the issues at hand.
Sure, you can, do you second?
You can second it too, if you want.
I can a second for discussion.
Certainly.
It doesn't mean it's passed.
I understand it doesn't mean it's passed, but I'm not going to second it because I think we need an EAW personally, and I've stated that all along, so.
Isn't that what the motion?
That's what the motion is for,
Yeah,
What?
to approve
is
it.
to approve an EAW.
Right.
So
And I don't,
So you don't want to second it?
I'm not going to second the motion to approve.
Because you don't want one.
This is correct. We have 3 other board members who can second it.
I guess, Brian, what's the policy here if there's no second?
Motion
Well,
dies.
the motion fails,
And then we
then,
just move on, there's no discussion?
well, the board has to pass one of the resolutions.
So if I made a motion for discussion to approve and there's no second, Brian, then the motion has failed and there's no more motion to be made, correct?
There'd be no more motions on the table, but then I would assume that someone would have to make a motion for the other resolution.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll
That's what I
second
was
it.
gonna get there. There we go. All
I
right.
have a motion and a second to approve the EAW.
So, Mr. Chair, just so I'm clear, this motion is to discuss the resolution to grant a citizen
Correct.
petition?
That's my
Okay,
motion,
thank
okay?
you.
Oh,
And Mr. Chair, that is the first resolution in your board packet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to verify, that does not mean I'm for or against, it's just I want.
No, I just want to make sure which
I
one we're
just want to
talking
get it
about.
moving on here, because otherwise we'll sit.
discussion, gentlemen.
Mr. Chair, I'll start. Somebody's gonna have to sooner than later. Miss Amy, I wonder if you could discuss for me, I don't know, pros and cons is not the right word, what we really would hope to gain by passing an EAW versus what Morrison County currently has in place in our land use ordinances.
Well, Mr. Chair, I believe I provided you with a copy of the EAW form, and so that is the information that is collected during an environmental assessment worksheet. The resolution that you have before you identifies some of the information. If you adopt the resolution to grant the EAW, then some of the items outlined in here would be the more soil information. It would address stormwater management concerns. Items not typically included in the permitting process, which would be endangered and threatened species, fish and wildlife habitat, surface water use, geology and soil, air emissions and pollution, cultural and historical resources, visual impacts and cumulative effects from related or future projects in the area. That would be the main thing that the EAW would gather and collect that normally doesn't come out in the normal permitting, conditional use permit process, and then the subsequent stormwater NPDES permitting that would be done by the state, and then also the permitting that'll need to be done through the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for the septic systems.
Notwithstanding, we could have, if we were to pass or fail this motion, when we would then move on to eventually to work on the CUP, we could put on a quadrillion different conditions onto that CUP that would follow Morrison County's current land use ordinances, would also include, as an example, MPCA's overseeing of it, Helen's office overseeing of whatever it might be. That's correct, right?
Mr. Chair, it's the duty of the board, when you're considering a conditional use permit, to also look at issues that need mitigation, to be addressed, and that is in the form of conditions. So as you're considering a conditional use permit, it is, that is one of your requirements, is to take a look at that and then add conditions as you see appropriate.
Other issues, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Wilson.
When I read through both of these findings, I just have a real hard time understanding why we would grant an EAW. It seems like all the qualifications are here. I mean, I can go through, there's tons and tons and tons of papers and research here that verifies that I don't believe that this needs to have an EAW on this property. And I could spend hours here researching it. I went out there that weekend after they had that 5 inches of rain and took a look at things and seen how it was. And it didn't seem like there was any issues there to me, just visually going out there after a big rain. So, and I've been out there looking at the property many times. I think the findings that we have against an EAW is much more than the findings that we have to have one. So, that's my point.
Other input?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I agree with Mike also, and I've been out there a couple times, and I think, I was out there on Memorial Day weekend, and I was out after a rain too, and I don't know, I didn't see anything.
Other input?
Mr. Chair, over I don't know when it came about, and excuse me if I got a horse in my throat, I can't get rid of the darn thing, but anyway. Over the past month or two, Amy did a tremendous job of giving us information. We asked her, if the board can remember, probably a 2 months ago, what the EAW would consist of as far as information that is gathered that her department, planning and zoning, couldn't offer us. And again, she explained to us what it was, but then here, I don't know, month and a half ago, Amy brought up the land contour, what it was, believe it's a mile that the EAW requires. You went out 2 miles. I mean, if you can help me out a little
Oh.
bit on that one?
Mr. Chair, for NPDES permitting, there needs to be a search within 1 mile of the property to identify sensitive water features. And so I use that tool, but I did buffer 2 miles instead of 1, and I think that's what you're referring to.
And then I believe, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
that the findings were, it was always brought up, is it Long Prairie River or something like that, is not even in that 1 mile, where it's always said, well, Long Prairie feeds this or feeds that. I believe that was not even part of what this EAW would even require. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, the buffering that you're talking about is separate from the EAW. It's would be required for the stormwater permitting.
Okay.
The EAW may, depending on who prepares the EAW, they may take a watershed approach look at the lake and all of that, and so the Long Prairie River certainly could get pulled into that if the scope of the EAW, whoever prepares it, decides to include that.
And Mr. Chair, I believe Scenic View, the MPCA requires them a stormwater plan, correct?
If the conditional use permit is granted
Okay.
and they undergo construction, yes, an NPDES permit along with a SWIP would be required prior to commencing work.
Stormwater.
Stormwater. plan.
Pollution prevention plan.
And again, and I didn't email, I just got a late email, or not email, text from Helen at Soil and Water. And her and Alan went out and visited on Friday, again, I believe, the Scenic View. And they found, again, I can give you a rough idea, that if Mr. Harding would like to speak, if that's okay, since he's the applicant, about, did you abandon some road?
Commissioner,
Yes.
we agreed at the meeting earlier that we weren't going to take
But
public
he's the
input.
applicant.
And if the applicant is going to speak at this hearing regarding the EAW, I would then request that we open it to the public as well. I really would.
Brian, I need your help on that one.
It's up to the board if you want public comment or not.
But is he not
He is-
considered public comment? He is the applicant, so he should be able to speak?
Again, that's up to the board.
He's not commenting on the conditional use. He's
Okay,
commenting
all
on
right,
the
That's fine,
EAW.
Mr. Chair. Then I guess let me pull the email up here, text up here, and I'll read it. Moving forward, I received, and I'm sure the rest of the commissioners received a lot of emails over the last week or two. I've also had conversations with residents from that area, and I think I had 5, where I talked to 5 residents on the phone, not just emails, and I don't know if they're here or not, if they are. They want the EAW done. And I'm sitting there, we're having a nice discussion, and then as 3 of the 5, I know I asked the question, I asked all 5 of the question, 2 of them stated, I says, if the EAW comes back as a, again, it's their opinion, it's not I shouldn't even say it's opinion, it's the information that's gathered. If it comes back a negative impact, meaning that there's really nothing that shows that this campsite may not have an expansion. And I asked the question to 3 individuals, and then again, I'm gonna get to it, but it becomes like it's personal, or it's political. It has nothing to do with the EAW, and I said, if this comes back with negative impact, I says, would you approve the expansion? Oh, no, I wouldn't approve it. And I'm sitting there going, well, why would you want the EAW? Well, that would so helps the rest of the lake, and so we know that's what's going on. And that really kind of bothered me a little bit. It's like, this has nothing to do with the expansion, which that's where this all came up, this EAW. And I'm sitting there going, you're doing it for your own personal gain, not for the lake's gain or whatever, So, and that was just one thing that I looked at. Then I got to see if Miss Here's come up here. But anyway, then Helen from Soil and Water, if I can find her here. Again, her and Alan went and did a walkthrough, as they say, on Friday. And if I can read this here. Alan and I visited the Fish Trap Campground site on Friday. We found our former control structure, which everyone hopefully understands that that's where the watershed goes into anything that comes off the campsite, to be forming well and in good shape. We didn't see any red flags. And Mr. Chair, I know you always said that they do such a, a great job and that sort, and so I am taking their approach of what their recommendations are. Regarding this proposal site for additions, he had abandoned a section of road, and again, I'm not for sure which one that would be. She recommends it seeded down, maybe, and this would be something if we bring it up down, if it happens to this EAW or whatever moves forward or not, make it into a pond area. And again, the distance, she's stating that the campground site is about 1,500 from the lake shore. It's not even on the lake shore. And it's so, again, there's just, another thing too is that we had the supervisors from Scandia Valley come in, and they're approving this here based on, if all the permits and whatever is been approved. So we also have their board that they're elected, and they're behind this. Now, again, I don't know if Amy, we asked that they put that in writing. We never got one in writing, but we did have a gentleman that is a supervisor from Scandia Valley, and we have it in, Nicole went through all these, I don't know, it took her hours, I'm assuming, to get his statement, and he is a representative of Scandia Valley, and he said that they approved the expansion, or, it had nothing to do with the EAW, but this is where this all started. The EAW started because of the fact of the expansion. So that's one thing too. And again, small government, I was on the township for many years, not that one. And again, that's our first defense, I should say, against big government. And most of them, I haven't heard any of these townships do a wonderful job on their roads and that sort. So I guess one other thing I may have is the septic systems. There was and that was great that the Fish Trap did a study on their septic systems. And please correct me if I'm wrong. There was a grant for Fish Trap Lake, Amy, and I think 30%, almost 30% were either in uncompliance or non-compliance or failing. Now, again, that's just, they're monitored by themselves. The Scenic View was going to be monitored by the MPCA on the septic system, if I'm not correct, once a year. Is that?
Mr. Chair, regardless of what happens here,
Yep.
they will need to move forward with permitting their septic systems through the MPCA.
Right, yep.
Excuse me, what comes out of that will be prescribed by the MPCA as far as how often they need to be checked,
Okay.
monitored, sampled, all of that.
But they are the ones that have, the Scenic View has to answer to the MPCA.
Correct.
Where an individual does not, they're kind of self-policing, as they say, if there's something wrong, correct? And, I'm sure the county may come out and look at it or whatever, but that's my opinion on that. Then I have a whole lot of other different things that really have nothing to do with the EP or the EAW, which that's what we're here for. And so I guess at this time, I say I look at this here too, and I say the information that I personally received from you and from the information I pulled up myself, we did a better job, and I think, than what EAW can do. And I say it's just that I don't know what else the EAW can do. Other than what we've already done. It's kind of being repetition or, adding it on. So at this time, I'm kind of done speaking.
Other questions and concerns?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner.
all the emails and stuff that I received, the majority of them at the beginning talked about boats on the lake and people using the lake. Through our discovery, we found out that the marina was not a marina. So that is going to be taking away, I can't tell you exactly, 10 to 20 boats off of the,
I believe it's 16 that'll be reduced mooring sites.
so I believe that kind of addresses a lot of the issues that I had in the email as far as the traffic on the lake. A couple other things that are interesting to me, and you did send a lot of information that we have here, but the current zoning allows the development of 40,000 partials into 40,000 square feet of residential lot within the shoreland zoning district and 5-acre residential lots within the agriculture zoning district. The amount of residence lots that could potentially be developed on that land is 41 single-family resident lots, 41 individual septic systems collectively designed to treat 18,450 gallons of sewage per day. And an EAW would not likely be required for that.
No.
Now, the campground wants 30 seasonal sites, one septic designed to treat 3,000 gallons of sewage per day, and the entire resort, if allowed to expand, would include 160 seasonal campsites, 12 septic system designs to treat 16,000 gallons of sewage per day. So I just thought that was an interesting facts that you found there. So I could go on and on because it's all very good what you present to us, so thank you.
Other information, gentlemen?
We've got a lot of information from Amy, so.
Having heard none, I would like to have my say, if I may. I will refer to the Morrison County Land Use Control Ordinance, which I believe comes from the comprehensive plan of the county. In that ordinance, the general policy of the county is, because the land and water in Morrison County are limited resources which must be used in a manner that will protect the environment and satisfy the need of the county's population, and because these land and water resources are required to provide food and fiber, construction material, and water recharge, recreation, wildlife, and living space, Morrison County finds it necessary to protect the land and water resources of the county to afford the desired quality of life and for the welfare of its inhabitants. In this document, the word shall means shall, okay, in the definitions of rules, all right? It goes on to look at resorts. In order to qualify as a resort pursuant of this definition, a resort shall also be fully licensed and permitted under appropriate state and local regulations. The entire parcel of land must be controlled and managed by that license. Mr. Hardy does not have an MPCA control license at this time. He has 130 campsites. He does not have a license at this point, all right? That license would be determined if indeed he is meeting the appropriate septic requirements of the 130. Therefore, I don't believe we can even grant it based on our ordinance. Secondly, let's move on. In our ordinance that was written by the county board with input from the community, including lake owners associations, all right? Recreation campgrounds. A centralized sewage disposal facility must meet or exceed Minnesota Pollution Control Agency standards. Okay? Contained in Minnesota rule. It must. It has to. And they do not. They don't have the appropriate ones. So to give a permit for an expansion when the appropriate permits and the studies haven't even been done by the MPCA, I believe does not follow our county ordinance. Next, existing campgrounds and planned unit developments. Expansion of a campground or a planned unit development by more than 2 units from the number normally in use prior to the date of the enactment of this ordinance must comply with standards in this ordinance. State administration, per 211 version 7081.040, the owner, operator, or owners of the SSTS of a group of STS under common ownership must obtain STS permit from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency according to those rules, all or in part. Let's go to the county water plan. The plan which is developed by the community members of our community, Lake Owner Association, MPCA, all stated, it will be the focus of this plan to provide guidance, coordination to all resource protection efforts as well as a format for sharing the information to the public. County and whole cities included so that all agencies and units of government have a common focus on how to best utilize our resources in a conscientious manner. We need to look at the impact of what we do and the decisions that we make. And the main purpose of this plan, right here, to identify existing and potential problems and opportunities for the protection, management, development of water and related land resources. Develop objectives that carry out a plan of action to provide sound hydrologic management of water and related land resources and effective environmental protection. Right in our water plan. the lids on Lake Alec, Fish Trap, Sullivan, and Crookneck were involved in this plan. Here, priority concerns established through this whole plan and all the people that are involved. Protect the quality and manage the quantity of groundwater resources. Protect the quality and manage the quantity of water resources. Promote and implement sound land use practices that reduce the impacts on all resources. And I can go on and on and on, gentlemen. I'm going to share with you some things that just most recently happened in Morrison County. Twice within the last 2 months, we have had articles in the Morrison County Record speaking to the high nitrate contents in Agron Township, 51, when drinkable is, I think, 10 to 12 is outside of that range. Secondly, Randall has now has to drill a new well because of the nitrates in the water, all right? The aquifers up there are very similar. There is sand and there is not enough filtration. So we talked about the septics that are currently in there, and I heard Amy saying that the current septic systems are treating the sewage because there's no discernible bad stuff in the trenches where it goes to. However, the soil is very vulnerable, okay, from the perspective that it even said in one of the reports that the soil is a sand base, okay? It's filtering down through the soil. And everybody around that hill, and this is a big hill, 100% of the property around this hill that the resort is on, all right, will drain into either the wetlands behind, which then drain into Fish Trap and then go into the lake. This could impact all the wells, all right? It could impact, okay, everybody, including the lake and the water. And it isn't just about the lake, okay? The lake is not impaired according to the last tests, all right? But the lake flows into an impaired watershed, the Long Prairie River, the Crow Wing, and the Mississippi. There was a letter in the Record this weekend from a member of the Motley City Council who shared a concern and recommended that we do the EAW. This water all goes right through Motley, all right, and they have major requirements with their permitting of their sewer disposal site. All right, so the soil there has not been determined to be able to treat that sewage because tests and drilling has not been done to check if it is permeating through the aquifer down to the rest of the lake. Here, comprehensive plan ordinance, we talked about that. Look at the requirements we have to sanitary landfill. We did that because stuff left the site. We don't know if this is leaving the site because the appropriate testing hasn't been done. In the last EAW, the DNR shared concerns about the aquifer and its vulnerability. Let's see here. And Commissioner Wincher spoke about the issue with the Scandia Valley Town Board being in support of this. The Scandia Valley Town Board said that they were in support and thought the road could handle the traffic. They said that and made it very clear that, and the individual that was here said that they need to meet all other state and local requirements before they couldn't approve it. So that is what was said. I am very concerned because I believe the vulnerability of this county and the soil types we have because of the aquifers that we have and its established problems within other parts of the county, we need to protect this, and an EAW would address that. And the MPC permit is not there. They are not permitted. So I have major concerns about this, and we need to do the EAW, because the EAW, I believe, will then necessitate an environmental impact statement. I believe it will, because it will need and show the need to really look at these types of soils and how they're impacting and being impacted by people's usages. So this is a discussion about the support for, and therefore I needed to put my piece in. And not to mention, we have the Lake Owners Association who petitioned us for another public hearing, as well as to have the EAW done. That would cover us as well from a liability standpoint in the future. That is a concern for me because we have an ordinance here that basically encourages and supports us in acting in a certain manner. Thank you. Other information, gentlemen, or feedback?
Mr. Chair, again, to answer some of your questions, and again, that's a lot of information there. It doesn't anywhere in the ordinance state that we are required to do an EAW. Anywhere, you can show me, it says in there, EAW must be done with our water department. It's not in there. It's recommended maybe or whatever, but it does not see that. And if Amy, you can help me out with the soil. I believe this is probably the best soil that they can ask for if for any type of leakage or whatever watershed. Can you?
So, Mr. Chair, when you look at the soils, it's a loamy sand. And so typically a loamy sand is going to be pretty well drained. So it's going to move water quickly. So from a septic system design standpoint, it is favorable soil as far as because it's going to move through. When you have a limiting layer like a clay layer, it's really hard to get treatment from that. But with sand, you need a lot more separation between the bottom of the system and the water because that water does move quicker. And so, yes, normally sandy conditions are favorable for septic design, but they do have their limitations as far as you need a lot more separation as far as to provide adequate treatment before it hits the water table. So, these systems, all of the systems that are there now are a trench system, and they have, according to the Rule 7080 design standards, have adequate separation to adequately treat. And that is from, at least from the county standpoint and from a design standpoint, that's what drives the designs, the separation. Now, the MPCA permitting, of course, is going to look at different criteria that we don't. But as far as for us approving that design, and as far as for inspection, it has passed inspection and has been found to be treating and have adequate separation to provide treatment for the effluent that those systems are receiving.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, you brought up the DNR had an EAW. They did not have it. I read this, I did background, there was never an EAW done, if you could help me on that one.
Oh, there was one then, excuse me.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, our records don't indicate that a full EAW was done or that the board made a decision on one. I believe the ball got rolling on an EAW back in '91 when there was some proposed expansion. Well, it was an illegal expansion, and they were moving forward to legalize that. My records don't show that one was fully completed, and so I can't speak very well to that just because my records aren't complete. And just based on what I have, it looks like it was started and the DNR acknowledged that they were rescinding the EAW submission.
Okay, thank you. And I say, I'm good for now again, I guess.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Johnski.
I'd like to make a little comment on nitrates. And please help me if I'm going to speak out of turn. 10 years of water well testing from the resort by the Morrison County Department of Public Health show no detects of fecal coliform or nitrates in the water system,
Correct.
or water samples, excuse me. Telling me that something's working somewhere.
And to be fair, you know,
Please.
the way the groundwater flows in proximity to the well versus where those systems are, I can't speak to that. But
I don't know anybody that can.
as a licensed facility, they do have to undergo annual water because they provide a water supply to the public. They have to undergo a water test every year that the public health department collects and tests, and that has not shown any impairment.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, Amy,
Yes.
the soil out there would be great soil then for runoff because it absorbs quick.
It's well drained.
Yes.
So when you look at water movement, and then of course you add in the hill, so that makes it a little bit harder, but water typically is going to move down before it moves across that type of soil type. And so that, because it is well drained soil with not a lot of limiting.
And I think
Layers.
if I'm not mistaken, at one of our hearings that we had, or Helen was going to work with the top, they had to work with the top of the hill and stuff for to slow water down and so forth, that
One
was
of-
one of the requirements.
Well, one of the recommended conditions by the planning commission, when the planning commission recommended approval of the conditional use permit, one of the conditions they also recommended was that they work with the Soil and Water Conservation District to further evaluate the stormwater movement across the campground and to address it as they saw fit.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair?
Yes.
With the EAW, if that is done, you made the comment it'll show a need. I don't believe it'll show a need. It'll interpret, it'll give us no recommendations, it's just gonna give us the facts, okay? Then we can have 10 different people give us 10 different reasons why we should or we should not do it. Again, I say the EAW is not gonna tell us if there's a need, and maybe help me out there. It's gonna give us just information, and then we have to decipher whether it's needed or not.
Mr. Chair, during the EAW process, a couple of things happen. Number one, the worksheet gets filled out, and that is the proposer's responsibility. So it would be Mr. Hardy's responsibility to provide that information. And it's the county's responsibility to determine whether or not that information is complete and to augment the information if needed. There also is a noticing requirement, so then that information gets sent out to about 30 different agencies and they will comment. So it'll go to the DNR, it'll go to the Army Corps of Engineers, it'll go, and then they may comment on that information. And then it'll come back to you to make.
Excuse me if I may,
Yes.
to comment on information that Scenic View has given, correct?
The content of the environmental assessment worksheet is what they're going to comment on. And so then collectively, you're gonna have that, you're gonna have the comment period, there's a 30-day comment period for the general public as well. And so you would be looking at the information provided in the EAW worksheet. You're gonna be looking at the information provided by the public during the public comment period and the information provided by the various agencies that have reviewed the EAW worksheet information. All of that together is what you would be deciding on whether or not to make a positive or negative declaration on the EAW at that time.
And where I got the information, Commissioner Wincher, was in the letter that we got, which was sent to us from Amy,
Yes.
regarding the DNR had reviewed the EAW that was done for the KOA campground expansion, and that was sent to us.
I understand that, but we can't believe everything that we read, so that is incorrect information.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
it truly then also comes down to who, and I heard this spoke here, we've had a lot of information sharing today. Who prepares the EAW? As an example, if I prepare the EAW, I'm going to prepare it my way, my version. Commissioner Johnson, on the flip side, is going to prepare the EAW, if that would be the case. Because we are two individuals, I find it extremely hard to believe that our paperwork is going to be exactly the same. My anticipation would be that Commissioner Johnson would come up with something, and forgive me, I'm just using you as an example, would come up with answers to questions, as I would come up with answers to questions, but the answers probably would not be the same, depending upon who it is that actually completes the EAW, which ultimately comes back to the county as more direction, if you will, where to go next. And it can or cannot be used. There's nothing that says that just because you have an EAW and the EAW says they have to have the grass 6 inches long, that this county board has to go along with that. We could still put on a condition onto a CUP that would say, no, 6 inches isn't long enough, it needs to be 12 inches, or 4 inches is fine, just as examples, correct?
Mr. Chair, so you're right, the proposer can choose to hire a consultant, they can choose to prepare the EAW themselves.
Yeah.
The county is responsible for reviewing that information and determining whether or not it is complete or not, and then we would do the back and forth, sending it back to them. But yes, it depends on who prepares it as far as the information that
Okay.
they dig up.
However, I believe that it would be scrutinized by MPCA and
Correct,
and
there's
the
about
DNR
30 different agencies
that would then look it over to be sure that those issues and areas were covered, correct?
That's correct. There's a kind of a mandatory list of agencies that we need to, would send the EAW to for review.
Other discussion, gentlemen? Having heard none, I have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the request for an EAW by the Lake Owners Association. All those in favor?
Is this a roll call vote?
Roll call.
Yes.
Roll call.
That would probably be best, it would be easiest.
Okay, Commissioner Zelinski,
No.
Mr. Johnson,
No.
Mr. Wilson,
No.
Mr. Winter?
No.
Yes.
Thank you, Amy.
Well, what happens
you
here now?
adopt
Do we have to
then?
make?
Okay.
So now you need to discuss the other one.
Yep.
We have another one. I just thank you for the information.
So if I make a motion that we do not require an EAW.
And adopt
Deny.
that resolution.
Adopt that
second one
resolution,
here.
yes.
To deny.
To deny.
What we would need, Mr. Chair, members of the board, is a motion to adopt the proposed findings of fact drafted by staff and a resolution to deny the EAW.
We'll do that.
I would second that.
So I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? I believe that in not conducting the AW and doing the appropriate due diligence and checking out the aquifer and how that, and this decision will impact the lake and the wells around that lake and the whole environment with an impaired watershed that this flows into, I believe does not go along with or coincide with our county ordinance. And I mean, basically in our ordinance, it specifically states in our water plan that we need to provide better and more protection for those waters that are not impaired. And it concerns me greatly that we choose not to utilize the input from our Lake Owners Association and the concerns that have been brought here today to really take a good hard look at how this will impact our environment. So
Mr. Chair?
I would, just a second, Jeff, and I would hope that is put in the motion to grant. So,
I would find it hard to believe that we haven't listened to any of the lake people at all. I've listened to a ton of them. I've listened to them talk about a road. I've listened to them tell me how bad campers are, that they trespass on other people's property, that their smoke goes onto their property, that they speed down roads, that they do tons of illegal stuff. I've heard from many, as you have, as everybody on this board has, on how pathetically bad that campground is and has been for years. I was there on Labor Day weekend. Excuse me, thank you, on Memorial Day weekend on purpose. I conversed with Mr. Hardy for, I'm going to take a stab at about 30 minutes. At about 11:30, maybe 12 o'clock noon, rough numbers. And point blank asked or told him why I was there, and that was because I wanted to see what kind of a ho-hum operation he ran. I said, I want to know where the noise is, I want to know how loud things are. There were kids on swing sets, there were kids riding bicycles, there were people walking back and forth, there was boats coming to and from. There were golf carts. There were people all over the place. Noise, something that bothered me. I gotta tell you, I didn't think there was noise at all. I didn't think there was activity that would have surprised me in the least little bit. It truly didn't. We talked about the docking areas. I was one that made a pretty big stink about that thing. What was it? We found the answer to it. We're taking away boats from being there, from being parked there. We all talked about the septics, the flow, permitted or not permitted. Certainly, this is one item, this EAW that we're voting on, that we're talking on today. We still have a CUP that we have to deal with. And it's in my opinion that there can be a quadrillion conditions put on that CUP. One of which is going to be, must follow all MPCA rules, regulations, et cetera, and must have those permits before any construction can be done. I just don't see that we have not been doing our just due diligence in doing this. I think we have been.
Other members of the board?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I have to agree with Jeff. I happen to have a place on a campground that's a park model. There's about 90 residents there. I would say that there may be 2 to 3 weekends a year that there's ever over 60% of them occupied at one time. I just, of all the things I've read, I think it's unjust on some of the things that have been said about the campground and the people there, because I don't believe it. I've been there, I've been to places, and it's just not the way it is. And I'm speaking from firsthand information. Not that somebody can't come in and get rowdy once in a while, but that happens on lake property too. You know, the lake properties have a lot more people there on special weekends. They have families, they have noise, and I just don't think things have been quite fair to authorities for this, so, thank you.
Mr. Muncher, anyone else? Very good. Where are we at with everything, guys?
First and a second.
Need a motion?
We had a motion, I made a motion, Wayne seconded.
To deny?
To adopt that resolution.
To adopt the resolution denying. Roll call, Commissioner Jelinski,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Winchell.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
That is all I have.
Thanks again.
Thank you
Let's take 10 minutes, gentlemen.
for all the information you got us.
Thank you, Ms. Amy.
And we have Ron.
And I was a long ways away from home.
Yeah.
What happens, there stays away, you know. one of those deals.
Members of the board, we'll resume at this point. Our representative, Ron Krischer, is here to give a legislative update to the board. You, come on up.
Good morning, Ron.
Morning.
Morning, sir.
How's everyone?
Wonderful.
You don't need a helmet, it's not that rough.
I've been watching.
Okay.
You know, and my escort, the sheriff, just left, so I don't know how well this is gonna
We are
go.
tough here, but not quite that tough.
Golly. Everything's fine.
All right.
Good.
You can leave now. You said you only needed a minute.
Rumor has it you're having 1 day special session. Is that
Do you believe any of those rumors?
Actually, no, I don't.
It'll be one day. It'll be less than a day. So I'll go from beginning to end. For the most part, the session was good. I mean, with divided government, which is what we're supposed to have. If you go back to our earliest days, we're supposed to fight. We're supposed to gnash our teeth. We're supposed to yell at each other. But as you guys know, as you just witnessed, you have to come to a compromise. You have to come to the best thing you can. And everything we passed through a DFL Senate and a House Republican, and not everybody got their way. Got to the governor, and he decided he wanted things a little differently. So going through the education bill, which was really a good bill, and the biggest part about that for our area was we brought some equity in. We're going to help with some facility maintenance, and also we were able to put some money into the formula. So that's statewide implication. That's actually very good. Our districts did very well with that bill, and I was proud of it. There's some good provisions in there. As you may know, childhood and early childhood is one of my staples. It's one of the things that I fight for the most down there, and I was able to get about $47 million additional in early childhood money, and we ended up with another $10 million in Head Start funding. And the reason that's so important as we look at our district or around the state, it's really those 30% of children that are coming to school that aren't ready. And what makes those children up, I think Brad's still here. Yeah, Brad knows this as well. They're children that are born into families that just aren't ready or have a disadvantage, or there's something that they're not able to compete with other families, whether that's income status or generational issues, chronic inebriation. I mean, all these issues. So I understand those, I understand the adult issues, but more importantly, what I understand is if we don't get to those children or we don't break those cycles, then we're fighting this battle on and on and on. So that's been one of the stakes in the ground that I've driven in. So, which also dovetails into what I did for child protection. And we were able to get $50 million in child protection. I was also on the child protection task force. And as I look at our district and the number of the demographics of our district, it's so apparent to me that what we see is these children, when they receive that knock on the door, when Mr. Vold's folks have to come in an unfortunate way, those children are put at a disadvantage. And that's, to me, first and foremost, where I think our resources should go. So I was very pleased that many of the initiatives that I did got through. On the other hand, I also was able to push for some tax decreases, tax relief. One of the things that I pushed for that did not go through because of the gas tax conversation was some tax relief for some of our small and entrepreneurial companies, trying to get them into Main Street, Little Falls, Long Prairie, around the district. I realize the economics of the situation. If we don't get these businesses here, and if we don't get people to move in here and have kids and get these kids into schools, it's not going to keep our economic engine going. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to do, and I'll dovetail that into the broadband work that I've done. In order to get some of these companies here, we have to make sure we have a broadband infrastructure that spans outside of Long Prairie, outside of Little Falls, outside of Piers, and I have 10 million. My bill had 10 million in there. I actually had 50 million was a request, and there might be some adjustments there. Stay tuned. That may not happen this year, but it may happen in a supplemental budget next year. But because of some of those efforts, even you probably know CTC up in Brainerd is working on Fort Ripley. So we're seeing some impacts of these efforts. So that was a larger kind of a swath of everything. The sticky point came actually dealing with counties and your auditor provision. I know, surprise, surprise. We tried to give you guys. Well, we tried to give you guys the ability to go out and look at a private firm if you wanted to, but apparently giving you guys choice isn't what everybody wants to do. So that was the governor's sticking point, and with the office of the auditor, that has been beat back. I think that will come back, but I don't believe that goes in effect till August of 2016, and we'll have a legislative audit report before that that shows the strengths and weaknesses of the state auditor's report. So.
And Mr. Chair, that we utilize the state auditor's office. However, a number of counties, what was the last count?
28.
28 out of the 87 utilize private auditors. There's schools of thought that identify you can get it done cheaper with a private auditing firm versus the Office of the State Auditors. There's relationship things. We all have folks that we work with better than others and whatnot. Offering us choice at a county level to make the decision for the best of our organization and those that we serve is appreciated. I think that's always what counties would advocate for. I certainly can see where the state auditor isn't necessarily in agreement with that, because it's nice when you have a complete
Monopoly.
Monopoly control. Right now, the way to do that is by going specifically to the Office of the State Auditor and asking for relief from that requirement, and that's been granted obviously to those 20-some counties that have done that. The idea was to offer a little bit easier way for counties, again, to make that choice that makes the most sense for you guys as policy setters in this building, in this
So
organization.
1/4 of them.
Commissioner Jelinski?
So, Mr. Chair, I think Ms. Gruber just answered my question. The way to get around that is to petition the state to say we can't afford you.
You just ask for permission.
You just ask for permission.
Just simple as that.
Yep, we'd like to utilize a private auditing firm. I mean, it's not quite that simple. It's not I send a text message or something, but there's a
Okay.
process that you
No,
go through.
Okay.
And that can be done, and that's obviously been done.
Text message.
And then I had one more question for Ron, before he continues, if you don't mind me interrupting you. Broadband. Today's not the first conversation you or I have heard of broadband. My little teeny tiny fear in this is that I think there are so many, and I hope I'm wrong, and you're gonna help me here, that there are so many different groups doing broadband here, a little broadband there, broadband there, broadband, everywhere, a little broadband.
I think it's a song.
Are they-
EIEIO follows
Are
somewhere in
they
there.
More and more and more joining in together and becoming one as a unit and working together to bring and build broadband out?
Okay, see, I'm a Republican. I believe in
Here we go.
competition and I believe in choice, not monopolies that you're trying to describe.
I'm really not. That's really not what I meant.
Yeah, so here's the problem we have. It's really about investment, right? If you're going to run a telecommunication company, it's much cheaper for you to run telephone or broadband service into an apartment building that's going to have 100 people into it
Absolutely.
than it is to run that last mile out to the dairy farm 10 miles away. And we know that. However, we also know that, and this goes all the way back to the 1920s with the Rural Electric Unification Act, we also know that there's a great advantage to getting these services out to everyone. It just takes some time. So with that, what we're seeing is the convergence of many factors that are going to play into broadband technology. Number one is all the push from cable into Netflix and all that is really changing the landscape that's out there. The other thing is the regulatory environment. What many people think is, so when we talk broadband, and this is going to get way over your heads, but just hang in there. When we talk broadband infrastructure and technology, everyone thinks of, can you plow a fiber out to my house? But the reality is, outside of getting that line to you is a regulatory environment that is stifling these companies. You may have heard of one of the bills that I was pushing for involved phone lines this last session, and I was painted as the guy who's getting rid of landlines. But the reality is, landlines are going away, not because any government entities telling it or businesses, because people are going to these things.
Absolutely.
And so what's happening, because those landlines are going away, they're becoming more and more expensive to the phone companies that have to provide those. And then the other problem is, you may have a landline, Ms. Gruber may have a landline, but Kevin has, and her company that's doing the telephone is regulating those at a certain level. But Kevin gets Charter, and Charter comes in and offers telephone service as a bundle. But his company, Charter, is at a different set of regulations, so therefore his company can drop the price to entice the rest of you to go to the Charter bundle. But her company cannot, because he's stuck on 100-year-old regulations. So my bill came in and said, you know what, the only way we're going to do this is if everybody operates at the same level. Phone service is phone service. I don't care if it comes through your cable. I don't care if it comes through your copper wire. We shouldn't have two regulatory situations. However, the Attorney General, and I'll go to the lawyer over here, you guys decided that we have to keep regulating.
You guys, yeah, here we go.
How you gonna?
Better put that helmet on.
But no, so actually the Attorney General got behind AARP and said, hey, you can't take phone lines away because people need phone lines. Well, all that's really done now is it's made it more expensive for those telephone lines. And the reason this is important, because out where we are, if we don't have the right regulatory environment, these companies aren't going to move out and invest in us, because it's a matter of numbers. We don't have the high rises that Minneapolis has, and we don't have the experts in the suburbs. What we have is a very spread out population, and that's a big problem for us. So I mean, I know that's a really in-depth thing, but it's a huge thing that we're battling, because if we don't get the regulatory environment where a company is going to come in and say, okay, how do I invest in Morrison County knowing that I'm going to attract some telecommunication companies, getting through some of these regulatory hurtles? So, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use you an example, but.
Well, the thing of it is like you said, Ron, is that you can bring it to me, but if I can't afford to have it, I'm not going to use it.
Yes, but if you can't afford to pay for it, why would I bring it to you? That's the chicken and egg.
Well,
Right?
It is.
Absolutely. It's a constant, the
Yep.
same way. I
Yeah,
agree.
and that's exactly what we're battling, is the fact that, yeah, I mean, everyone says I should be able to have it at this price. Well, the only way that works is if we have more companies providing it, and that brings the cost down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm bundled out in Cushing with
Yep.
Consolidated. I gotta have a landline. I never use it.
Yep.
It's not good, because we're paying all that extra money for a landline, and I'm paying for a cell.
Mm-hmm.
It just,
Mr. Chair, Ron, if I,
Yeah.
again, I know we could probably keep you here all day.
And I don't mind. I mean, this is important stuff,
But,
actually,
you
so
know,
I don't.
Again, the surplus that Minnesota had.
Yeah.
Why is it so important that they want to spend it right away? Why can't they, so now next year, now we'll have a shortfall. Well, now we spent all this money, now, or I'll use Mr. Jelinski, he asked for X amount of dollars, and he gets it this year because it's a surplus, but now we don't have the money. are we gonna take that away from, or now we're gonna raise our taxes again, so Mr. Jelinski gets money every year and year? And I also liked the way your stand on these 4-year-olds, how that was finally turned down, because that was a big mistake. I mean, if everybody knows how that works, where they want to put them in school, sure, they'll give them the money, there's no room for these kids, you're taking people away from jobs that are daycaring these kids. That was just, I don't know why he was in there, but there's my comment and question.
Okay, so I'll take those in order. First of all, the surplus. As you know from budgeting, the surplus happened because we had more tax revenues than the budget cost us. So therefore, somewhere along the line, more tax revenues were coming in, which means we were overtaxing people. That's not to say that we shouldn't look at adjusting services because there's inflation, and we did that. However, we're going to leave about $875 million on the bottom line that we haven't spent yet. We put some more into our rainy day fund. So we've tried very hard to make sure that we put a budget that's going to be long-term. That's at least going to get us 2 or 3 years out in case, because you're right, it ebbs and flows. To that point, that was one of the sticky points we had was, and I know many of you talked to me about the gas tax, and it goes various ways in that, but many people wanted to raise the gas tax to do a tax cut, which just in a time of surplus did not make sense to me. It's like, okay, you're asking me to raise taxes so we can give you a tax cut over here. How about we find a way to do transportation with the surplus, and then if we have money left over, let's look at where we can help out our counties and our property owners with their property taxes and so forth. So that's what we're trying to do. We've got $875 million left on the bottom line. That'll probably grow to $1 billion by the time we get back in January. So we'll be looking at how we can use that for tax relief as well as in inflation. You probably saw this last session. We're not in a big hurry to spend a lot of money. I mean, at least in the House. And it's not because we don't think these services are important, but quite frankly, why should we be in a big hurry? Because every time we add to that base, all we're really doing is adding to your next 2-3 years down.
Down the road.
And people forget that compounding factor. So,
Yep.
so that on the 4-year-old thing. And I should be very clear, it's not that I don't think schools should be doing preschool, I just don't think they should be doing all the preschool. Right now, we put money in school readiness so they can do that, they can address some of the preschool. But, going back to my choice thing, with early scholarships, Head Start, and schools, one of the things that we know that brings students into preparation for kindergarten is if parents have access to quality, if they have access to choice, and if they're involved, those kids will do better. And by giving them the choice of Head Start, go to a quality daycare or preschool program or school, those parents have to get involved with those kids' lives. And the single biggest factor that we have found is when a parent gets involved with a kid's life, and we know this, I mean, this is not like it's a huge secret, but when you get involved in your kid's life, that kid tends to do better. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions of the board? Anything else, Ron, that you would like to?
I think you're going to see, we'll probably have session in the next 7 to 10 days. I was just reading emails coming through, and we're trying to get this buttoned up. But more importantly, for next year, we'll be probably talking 2 things, transportation and taxes. We've got a transportation bill that we've got to address. We're trying to put a long-term plan together, and of course, the taxes, because we'll have some money to figure out where that's going to go.
All right.
There you go. Thanks for giving me the time.
Thank you for
Ron.
coming.
I just want to make one comment, if I may, Mr. Chair. I just
Yes,
want to thank
yes.
Representative Creasy for his work on the task force.
No, thank you.
I'm sure it was more time consuming than you actually thought it would be. But he was the voice of reason, and I think had a kind of a measured approach to how to manage the issues within the child protection system. So I really appreciate him reaching out to me, so I just said that.
Thank
No,
you.
that's
Thank
nice.
you.
Thanks, Ron.
And I should, Brad was great advice. I mean, I think early on, you had put me an email and said these are the things you can live with, can't live without, and I followed that pretty much to the T. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, see ya.
Have a good day.
Yes, thanks.
I think I'm going to be next, I'm
Counts-
hoping, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, social services report?
You think?
So, we're going to switch things up a little bit, if you're okay with that.
I'm
Mr.
fine
Chair.
with that.
Looks like you're gonna do a play or something.
Yeah, really. Let's get it.
I am. I'm
Act
orchestrating
one.
here.
Scene one.
So I appreciate you adjusting the schedule, and thank you to Council on Aging for allowing us to go ahead. Lori has to get on a jet plane.
I do.
So So anyway,
Good for you.
and Paul is back here as well, and Paul is responsible for our transportation system. And we have TRICAP here, we have a dual relationship with TRICAP.
Hello, I'm Lori Schultz. I'm the Executive Director of TRICAP. Thank you for having us here
And
today.
that's statewide, region-wide?
It is, our primary counties are Stearns, Benton, and Sherburne, but
so
we are
Morrison.
the rural transportation provider in Morrison County
Okay.
for transportation, and we also administer energy assistance services in Morrison County as well.
Okay, very good. Lynn?
My name is Nate Fish. I'm the Transportation Director for TRICAP.
So we have a dual relationship with TRICAP, as she said, rural transportation, and then we also do a contract with them for some administrative support with our volunteer driver program. So I'm gonna let Lori and Nate talk first about their transportation report that they provided, so.
Thank you. Well, I'm just going to introduce TRICAP a little bit more. So we serve this area for transportation. We've been around for 50 years, and I want to thank you for your past support. Our goal at TRICAP and with the transit program, of course, is to improve and increase services in Morrison County. And we have been able to do that over the last 15-20 years that we've been providing the transportation services here in partnership with Morrison County. I'm going to let Nate talk more about specifically what we do in terms of routes and transportation here, as well as the numbers that we serve, who we serve, and what we're looking to do next year. But again, I wanted to thank you for having us here today. So with that, I'm going to let Nate talk about transportation in general.
All right, now you gotta forgive me, this is only like my second month on the job here, so some of the statistics and things come rolling in at a quick pace, but
We
what I want,
won't care if you look at your paper.
I have to.
He did his disclaimer.
Exactly, gotta throw it out, but, one, I wanna thank, the board and stuff for the support we get. It's vital that we have that support to be able to provide the service we do in the counties. If you're looking at some of the statistics that we had for 2014, our increase from 2013 to 14 in our bus rides, that's up 4,410 ridership from 13 up into 14. We're also seeing our individual passengers rideship grew by 77 in that year. As you can see here, we maintain 8 volunteer drivers in the area with providing, 8,590 volunteer rides out of the county. Our total rideship in the area, if we're looking at it, at 37,426, from 13 to 14, that's increased by 5,889 riders. So as you can see, as we're in the area, we're upticking all the time and being able to create more awareness of what TRICAP does as a transportation unit.
That's
for-
within the 3-county, or
That's just your Morrison County
Okay, very good.
ride
Thank
counts.
you.
And as you can see on the ridership, you can see the routes, how they're laid out and designed for them, the different time breaks. A lot of our ridership right now is the adult passenger between 18 and 65. A lot of what we have been doing too is, to use the word social right, is in the setting for social events. A lot of to the parks, to the grocery stores, medical appointments, things of that nature. So we're definitely enhancing the community's availability to the services in town.
How about to the library? Is there a lot of people that go to the library?
I don't have that statistic
Okay,
right to
just curious.
the library itself, but as we get them into town, sometimes they may just get off one spot
different
walk.
things, yeah,
Yep, you do different things with the time, so being able to get to the rural areas, our rural residents into the center of town and things to take care of business and just some of their social events, which is always good for.
Commissioner Zelinski?
Mr. Chair, Nate, do you mind if I interrupt?
No, go ahead, sir.
I think he answered it. I would like to know who qualifies to get on a bus?
Anybody. It's
Any
public.
person, period, can
Period.
find your schedule somewhere, wherever it might be, doesn't matter, can find your schedule and can get on that bus
Absolutely.
for whatever the cost was. The cost is the same for everyone.
We are a public transportation provider, and so it is open to anybody who wants to ride our bus.
We're not talking low income, we're not talking high income.
No.
We're talking about anyone. And then I need to just piggyback a little bit off of what Commissioner Mauer said. And I'm very clear, I understand. Arrive Royalton, arrive Little Falls. Do you dump everybody off at Bank Square? Do you dump everybody off at Walmart? Do you dump everyone off at the senior center? I'm just asking, because I don't know the answer.
No, on some of the routes, we're gonna have, A to B. Now, a majority of these are set up to have our collection sites or, bus stops or, places that we do, so one that becomes visible. And so if we are consistent with those spots, then we might be able to get somebody to ask us, well, where's that coming from? So, yes, we centralize those things. Obviously, if there's a need, for disabled or other things, there's, things that can be made exception. But obviously, if we're able to, we're gonna be in one location and be able to pick up and drop in those areas. And that's why it's based like that. So if you pick up one day on one street, the next day the other, confusing.
No, I got it, but I mean, it's, when we're talking about Little Falls or Flensburg, doesn't matter where, there is that spot, period.
Yes.
To pick up and drop off.
If I can interject, not so much in the city of Little Falls, though, we're a curb-to-curb service.
Okay.
And so, in that sense, we pick up people at their residence and we drop them off at the medical facility, the library, wherever it may be. When you're looking at some of our other routes where it talks about departing at Little Falls and arriving in St. Cloud, the hub usually is perhaps Crossroads Mall in St.
Okay.
Cloud. So, in that sense, it's more of a central hub, but in the city of Little Falls and our services that we offer Monday through Friday, it's more of a curb-to-curb service.
So I would get on the bus, if you will, and I would say that I would like to go to the Family Medical Center, the hospital, whatever, and I'm gonna be there for an hour. Then miraculously, that bus is gonna be back at the hospital to pick me up? Is that how that
Yes,
works?
what happens for all of our rides in the transportation service is that people call into our dispatch center. And our dispatch then schedules the rides, communicates that with the drivers, and from there a schedule is developed. Now, sometimes, it may mean that they have to wait 15 or 20 minutes depending on where that, bus is in the city of Little Falls. But yes, you are correct, and that is how it works.
And it would also be that I'm done at the hospital, that I now wanted to go to Coburn's, Walmart, I don't care, whatever. Perhaps, this is set up ahead of time, I'm now gonna get dropped off there and picked up again.
That is correct.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Johnson.
That one thing, on the fares, $1.25 any place in the city of Little Falls, and $3 in the country, that's a pretty good price.
We have very reasonable rates when you look at the scope of transportation services across the state of Minnesota, yes.
Deb,
Commissioner Johnson?
just a second. Deb had something?
I was just going to say that folks, they'll be dropped off here, and if they need a ride, we'll contact the dispatch center for them, and they'll get picked up and stuff. So it's throughout town, and they're very responsive, and as soon as they can get there, and everybody's quite appreciative of that.
Okay.
We do offer a subsidy for in-towns and out-of-town rides through social services. So it actually, I think it's 50 cents or 75 cents if you purchase your tokens from social services. And out-of-town, I believe, is $1.50.
Okay. And when someone is doing that, now we're gonna be talking about income-based something, right, or no?
No, we just base that, well.
Disability based.
Okay.
Or elderly.
Okay, very good.
Sure.
Disability
Okay.
or elderly.
Gotcha.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
when
Commissioner.
you say country, you're gonna go out to Hillman and pick me up?
Maybe.
I believe
She
it
says,
says in
"Where's
about.
Hillman?"
Okay, within so far of Little Falls, probably.
It is a 10-mile radius of the city of Little Falls, and if you look at the Morrison County routes, we have what we call the dial-a-ride, and that's the 10-mile radius. And then it's in the city limits of Little Falls for our city service. That is Monday through Friday from 7 to 4:45 currently.
And then we discuss this too, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
You say 8,600 volunteer driver rides. I'm assuming if you're a volunteer, you get the ride for nothing? Is that how that says on the form up there?
So the person riding with the volunteer, correct, there is no fee for them. Most of those rides are based on health insurance. So they're generally taking them to a health insurance or a insurance-based reimbursement. Or our staff are using volunteer drivers for some of our service needs. So for instance, taking parents to visits or things like that. So, and the volunteer drivers, actually technically are volunteers, they only are reimbursed their mileage and startup costs, so.
Yep, and that's correct. And with the volunteer driver program, what we're looking for first is what's the most cost-effective mechanism for getting this person where they need to go? Can they use public transit? And if they can ride the bus, and that's more financially feasible, and it meets the client's needs, we will do the public transit route. If not, then we use the volunteer drivers.
So that being said, you done? Okay, that being said, my question is, you said it's within 10 miles? Is Randall not within 10 miles? I'm wondering why there isn't something to Randall, and I'm just curious. 'Cause
You
it's a-
know,
it's a-
I think we used to have a route that stopped in Randall,
Okay.
and we weren't getting the numbers of
Okay.
ridership, and that's something that we have to look at, that we're required to do, is look
Okay.
at
Okay.
where is our ridership, and, you know, the Minnesota Department of Transportation has, expectations is a strong word. They have standards, thank you. They have standards on how many riders we have to have per hour to make it an effective route.
I was just
And,
wondering.
yeah, I think we did try a route to Randall. It was a few years ago.
Okay.
And Randall's about 10 miles.
Yeah,
from
right,
there.
yeah, right at 10, right at 10
And
miles.
then
Yeah.
last question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Volunteers, I'm sure you always got a shortage of volunteers. So if
Yes.
someone wants to volunteer, what's the
You got extra
qualifications? Oh, what's the qualifications, where do they go, or whatever, you know?
Well, definitely they can contact our office and we take care of qualifications are, you know, very minimal. Obviously, looking at their driving record, you know, criminal background.
Criminal history check.
Yep,
yes,
criminal
yeah.
history. From that standpoint, then we, you know, the car inspection has to be there also. So we take those things there. But yes, that is a shortage and it's always a need. And it is something that in the area for transportation, volunteers is a nice way to go.
Commissioner Zelinski?
I hate to beat this to death, but I'm going to. But I'm going to. Somebody lives 10 miles out of the city of Little Falls. They call your dispatch and say, I want to go wherever. And then I want to go wherever, and then I want to go home. And I don't care about the 15-minute wait in between, whatever it might be. For $6, that's exactly what happens.
Well, if you look here, it's $6 on a round trip. Now,
Yep,
if we come into the
that's-
city and we do other runs,
Yep.
so if we're getting on and off, then we'd be at a, you know, $1.25 rate. So let's say we bring you in to Walmart.
Yep.
That's your first stop, and then from Walmart, now we're in the city and we're gonna go to Colburn's or
Yep.
whatever. So that'd be the $1.25. So every time we're boarding the bus, there is the fee for that.
Gotcha.
Okay. But they can walk to the other places.
Yes,
Well, sure,
yes,
sure.
yes.
There's other
No,
options.
no, no, I got it. I
And
got
see,
it.
like in some of what we have, like in dealing with when we come into St. Cloud, the key deal to being at Crossroads is because now that individual has the opportunity to use the public system there. And
Within
that's-
Oh, right.
St. Cloud.
So
Right.
having the major hubs in some of these
Right.
areas, so they have access to the other means of transportation.
Other questions, gentlemen? Okay, continue.
So what I would say is, within the transportation department that we have at TRICAP, it's two very distinct programs. First, what we've been talking about is the public transportation or the bus transit. And then the other, of course, is our volunteer driver program. And we keep those programs and funds separate. And so what we're here really today to talk about is, of course, the volunteer driver administration. And I believe it was included in your packet.
So
In-
I will take to the second one, and I
Thank
just
you.
want to so really, I just put this in as we get more into the budgeting process, there will be more conversations, but I just wanted to share with the board, as they have indicated, the commissioners have been very supportive of transportation within Morrison County. And about 8 years ago, we decided to contract with TRICAP for volunteer transportation services. We used to have a position dedicated to coordinating, scheduling, managing volunteer drivers, and felt like we could use a system that was a little more integrated and to help support those efforts, as well as they had the public transit, so then they could have that variety of opportunities available. So this slide, what you have is that we currently paid $22,500 in administrative costs for volunteer transportation. The other two slides indicate more the subsidies that we provide for city, rural, and social service transportation to TRICAP. So for instance, as we said, if you're developmentally disabled, you can come and buy the tokens. We pay full price, they come in and buy them for half price. We fully subsidize rural, so anybody can come in and get a rural token, and I can't remember the cost for them coming in to purchase, but we buy them for full price and then we sell them at a reduced rate because we feel that rural transportation, again, is something that we want to support. So that's really the support that the commissioners have provided to this point in terms of our volunteer and public transportation. I will add one more thing I did not put into this slide, that we also this year added a $10,000 subsidy for public transportation, because currently the feds support public transportation at 85%, and there has to be a local match of 15%. And I believe the rates paid using the transportation was not sufficient to cover those rates. So we did agree to add an additional 10,000 around public transportation. But we are here again to, I think, just inform the board. We'll have more conversations around this, but the advisory committee of TRICAP has looked at the rate structure for volunteer driving within TRICAP, and as Lori said, they have two distinct cost centers for transportation, public and volunteer. We have fortunately been very supportive of TRICAP and have always paid an administrative rate. Benton, Sherburne, and Stearns have not done so much in that realm, and I won't, maybe Lori can speak to that, but I won't go on with that. So what the board at TRICAP and the advisory task force has decided is to look at a per ride administrative rate versus a what I would say is just a subsidy, the $22,500 or $800, what we're paying currently. So that
Now,
last
question,
handout
let
really
me
indicates that.
interrupt you. That would be for everybody within the system?
Everybody that's using volunteer drivers.
Right, within, including the other counties.
Yep,
So
correct.
that's a way for you to get the money out of them that they're not giving you now? Is that what this is about?
It's a way to equalize
That-
the rates
whatever,
for
the
all
way I
the
said
counties
it.
that are a member of
Equal.
TRICAP's volunteer driver program.
Understood, very good.
And if I could just interject that, we currently do not operate the volunteer driver program in Sherburne County. We are set to begin that partnership in January of 2016. So to be fair to Sherburne County.
Oh, don't be fair to Sherburne County.
Appreciate it.
So Nate and Lori, and actually Linda Elfstrand, who was previous to Nate's position, came and met with Paul and myself a couple months ago, and we knew we were going to do this. So I just wanted to share that this looks like what the rate structure will be beginning in 2016. I did ask that they reassess and sent a letter to their board indicating such, that if they could reconsider the rate we're paying in 2017 and reducing it closer to where Benton and Stearns are, given our prior support of the program, and I don't know if their board has taken a look at that yet or not. And to be honest, it will not be that much. To me, it's more of a symbolic, I think, attempt at showing that we are going up a little bit faster than they are. And I think that we've already paid some support. So they're gonna look at that, whether or not we're gonna pay $6.12 per ride in 2017, or if they would look at reducing that 50, 60, 70 cents per ride. So as you can see then towards the bottom of that, that would be our change in administrative costs for the volunteer driver program over the next 3 years as the rates increase. And so I don't know if there's more questions on that, or?
So the $10,000 subsidy that we give them, is that related to this program?
This is not related to this
Okay.
program, that's a separate
But the
subsidy.
money we appropriate, okay, levy dollars here, the 22.5 for 15?
Yes,
That would be what this is
that would
about?
go away, that 22.5
Right,
would
and
go
that would-
away, and it would
and-
move to this
And have
formula.
you done any statistical analysis or extrapolation to see how much that's gonna increase the amount we're gonna be paying?
Yep, it's right there in the bottom of that last handout.
Right.
So-
Based on the number of rides and
Oh, I see.
ridership
One
in
more down.
14. So
Ba-
it's increasing what it is, we've paid.
Yeah.
Um,
And you know, again, it is a higher cost, but I think the benefits are, again, they run the public transportation, they manage the volunteer drivers, they're able to find the most cost-effective ride available for those individuals.
Are we gonna stop to 10 grand then?
That is a separate cost pool, that is separate from
So the
this
answer would be
volunteer.
no?
So the answer would probably be no, but we've not talked about that $10,000 for
Just asking
2016,
the
so.
questions, because this is gonna be coming to us yet.
No. So, and I believe the board did approve this as their rate structure for 16, 17, and 18, if I'm correct, right?
The TRICAP Board of Directors did endorse this. However, I will be going before the board and talking about the proposal from Morrison County to reduce the rate in 2017 to an economy of scale, which would be similar to Stearns County as well. And I have no objections to that, and I will make that recommendation to the TRICAP board.
And what I would say is that we do an annual contract. So in 2016, $5.10 per primary trip. If we find that it becomes more costly or there might be better options, we could always move away from TRICAP or renegotiate with the board or look at those things. But at this point, that's where we stand in terms of the next 3 years, looking out if we continue our relationship with TRICAP and the volunteer driver program. So there is no board action at this point. We will be talking more about this at our budgeting meetings as we move forward. But really having Lori and Nate here talking about transportation, I felt like it was a good opportunity to kind of set the stage as we move forward on budget conversations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Any more questions?
All right. no,
That's all I have this
good.
morning. Thank you.
Okay, Thanks
Have
for
a nice
coming.
flight.
Enjoy the airplane ride.
Thanks, Paul. Next. Who we got coming up next? Council on Aging, come on up. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Lori.
Long wait, huh?
That's okay. We're good. All good discussions. Well, thank you for having us. I'm Lori Morrison, the Director of the Central Minnesota Council on Aging, and this is Mary Bauer, and she's our Community Development Specialist. And I thought I would bring Mary here since you've seen my face and heard from me the last couple of years. But I wanted to have this opportunity to, one, thank you for your continued support of the Council on Aging through our match request to the county. I did receive Mr. Voigt's contract request the other day, and for the continued representation to our board from Commissioner Johnson. His leadership is much appreciated to our board.
Thank you.
And I thought today, I asked Mary if she would come and do a presentation to you just of some of the aging trends that we're seeing in Morrison County and of our region here, in our service region, which is the 14 counties, and just to give you kind of an update of what are some of the aging trends happening to our older adult population and our caregivers. So I'll turn it over
We
to
have
Mary.
some additional handouts for you too that will give you specific data. I'm going to do this in 15 minutes. Is that still, this is usually a 30 to 45 minute presentation, so.
15 minutes is good.
Yep.
We'll just move right along, and you know where to find us if you have any questions. So we're going to skip through, we're just going to go briefly through these first 6 slides. You can look at these at your leisure, but you know about our agency. What these first 6 slides are just an overview of what we do, who we serve, you know that. Our mission, note independence and community care, keywords. And then this is how we do it, and you're familiar with that. It was really interesting for us to hear the transportation discussion because that's a deep concern of ours in rural Minnesota. So then I pretend you're another audience, a large audience, and I then move into the maturing of America and some of the demographics.
Maturing, that's good.
Also, as I go through this, keep in mind other groups that may benefit from this. I've done presentation to civic organizations like Rotary Clubs and Chambers of Commerce, groups that you're members of, other county groups. I'm going to be doing a presentation to the Wright County Human Services Advisory Committee. The more we can get this information out, the better.
The mayor's groups and.
Yes. So here first the U.S. demographics, and I guess you just look from 2006 to 2030 and you see what we're dealing with. This information is important to us personally and professionally. As I look at the crowd here, I'm thinking there are a couple of baby boomers in this group. So I feel at home here. But this is really significant, I think, for leadership, for county and city and state leadership. And we're hoping that we can help you with your futures planning by giving you this information. This is all from credible resources as well. Our agency is able to get at a lot of new data. A lot of this is in the news every day as well, but we try and give you really strong research-based data so that you know what you're dealing with. So these are the Minnesota demographics, and we've given you a handout that has our regional demographics as well. But again, it's pretty much a doubling. This is another way of looking at this 65-plus group. And if you notice the dark blue areas of the state, expect an increase of 100 to, was it 368% increase in the number of people over 65 in those dark blue colored counties. So what does this all mean to us out in the trenches, doing the work and planning for the future, which is...
Yes, Commissioner. This increase is up as of 2000 to 2030, that's where we'll be max at 368%, correct?
Correct. 15 years, next 15 years are going to be a challenge for all of us. So in 2017, 50% of that 65-plus population will control 70% of disposable income, which marketers and retail people, not everyone looks at that population in the way they should. They're not marketing to them. There are a couple of myths about that group, and that is that they buy the same thing all the time and that they're cheap. And that's not necessarily so, as we can all attest to.
Any comment, Jim?
I'm not, I offer no.
Conservative.
I offer no comment.
Conservative is a much nicer word.
So many of us in this
I'm okay with
generation.
cheap.
All right.
We have, a lot of us have dollars to spend, I'm included with you in this, baby boomers. But also, many of them may not be prepared. And so this next slide tells you, this is from AARP Minnesota. They did a statewide survey of 1,000 Minnesotans over the age of 45 and found that this number, this percentage, felt they have not yet saved enough to retire. There's particular concern about women in this situation because often women are left alone. They tend to outlive their spouses. They've given up earning power over the years to raise children and be caregivers, and they are left with fewer assets after many times caring for a spouse with health issues. So they're spending down their assets to care for an aging spouse, and then they're left with less. 68% of a couple's assets are spent on the first spouse's health care needs, and that could be men or women, but us women, unfortunately or fortunately, tend to outlive you guys. So it becomes an issue for us, but it does lead to financial difficulty. These rates all match savings trends across the nation. And currently in Minnesota, about 40% of all workers and 22% of those 45 years of age and older do not have access to a retirement savings plan at their place of work. That is concerning. Traditionally, we've looked at financial security with the three-legged stool, Social Security, pension, and private savings. And two of those legs are going away. We also know that most of us aren't against saving. We just simply lack the opportunities or have had to tap savings for various reasons over the last 10 or so years. So this gives us a picture of the labor force. As much as us baby boomers want or need to, will not likely be able to continue working, and that's going to impact the labor force. 75% of Minnesota's 2030 workers are already in the workforce. There aren't any more out there. So many of us, as my husband and I are doing, and probably many of you, will continue working as long as we can. The question to us is, when are you guys going to retire? And we say, it's not on the radar, we're going to work as long as we can, but we also have to have Plan B if we can't. Fortunately, I have an employer who's looking at transitional options for me as I age. I'm aging in place personally and professionally, but most HR departments and most bosses do not have a transitional plan for workers aging out, still staying and contributing, and certainly have a lot to offer. But there's no plan for that. It's either you work full-time or you go, and there's not going to be a replacement. So that's the snapshot of the labor force. This one is going to show you some potential careers for people who are staying in the workforce or coming into the workforce. If you notice, 3 of those are related to healthcare. This is from the Occupational Employment Statistics Program, the U.S. Department of Labor. So these are, again, accurate statistics. The birth rate slowed in the 70s, 80s, and 90s when Joe and I were having kids. He came from a family of 16, and we had 3. So that affects the workforce right there. Those born in 1990 began to enter the workforce in 2010. And these workers, along with those from the 70s and 80s, are not enough to maintain the skilled labor force that we have had with the baby boomers. Relative to the most needed employees in that past slide, now we have the look at healthcare. And there are huge challenges right now that Lori can add to here. Lori, if you have something you want to add. The Career Builder is the largest online employment website in the United States, and this information is from them. 52% of healthcare employers have open positions for which today they can't find qualified candidates for these reasons. 51% of those healthcare providers say it's a skills deficit that is the main reason. We hear that employers can't find reliable, trusted labor.
Well, we're experiencing a lot with the hospitals and nursing homes in our state right now, and you look at a community such as Little Falls, the difference between a nurse in a hospital versus a nursing home, the pay difference is about $16 an hour. And so it's very difficult for the nursing homes to, oftentimes individuals just getting out of school will go get their job at the nursing home, but once they get the experience, they'll move to the hospital, and we'll have deficit in staffing in the nursing home, so they'll be full, not because there's not enough availability of beds, but they can't take on new patients coming in because they don't have the staffing. And so there's a real workforce shortage right now in the healthcare settings.
And if I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner.
that, again, reading a little bit here and there, that wages is a big difference.
It
Because
is.
people just don't realize, when you work for a private industry, they just can't pay the benefits and the dollar figures as government can, and that's why you said they're moving from this to, getting their experience there, and it's really challenging. I don't know what they're gonna do.
Commissioner, and the other thing is, it's not just private industry and public. I mean, my wife makes like roughly $40 an hour as a hospice home care nurse. They don't make that at a nursing home. She's
No.
working for a hospital. They have to pay that because
Right.
it's affiliated through the hospital, and that's what the contracts are with
Well,
their
it's a
unions. and
union,
everything.
right, it's
That's
a
what their
union.
unions and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's the disparity.
Prevailing
Right.
Yep, so they
Right.
bring them in, they train them in, and then they're gone.
Right.
So that's what they do this
And
constant term.
when you get into rural communities, it's often the nursing homes that are the largest employers. And yet, we've been seeing nursing homes in outstate that are closing because they simply don't have the workforce to support them.
And it's needed more and
And
more with
it's
the
needed
population.
more and
so-
more.
The population in those facilities will become more frail and need more care. It's difficult
Right.
work, and we don't have the value on it that it needs to have. Those people do wonderful work.
Right, and on the positive side of that, hospice home care tends to really keep a lot more people in the homes than it used to, so that's helping a little bit, so.
And that will continue
Yeah,
and
yeah,
from
to
many
increase.
different directions.
Oh, sure.
Well, and too, Mr. Chair, I know some friends of ours and stuff like that, they have family members that are caring for their parents 24/7, just for that reason, the cost. And they say it's tough on these, the baby boomers to take care of their parents, but there just isn't any other resources for them.
We'll address that as
Right.
well,
Okay.
yeah.
And the cost to family members is, and Mary will probably be talking about this though, but the cost to families in caregiving it's very expensive, and
Not only just
that
mentally,
impacts
but
the,
also mentally too.
Physically.
yes, and
For an older
physically.
spouse, physically, it's pretty tough too. The responses to this, I've addressed now the economic and the employment issues, and the challenges that we're facing may be solved by this. It's one option. There are a lot of women in rural Minnesota who could do fine work in long-term care if we could give them the training they need and get them connected upgrade their skills. But these are some of the stats on people 50 years and older from 2013. And this is from across the United States. But those last two are particularly concerning based on the out-of-pocket costs for health care, home care, nursing home, all that, medications.
Holy cow, could be the response to that.
Yeah, this is startling. I think this is startling. I don't think people have any idea. They will likely go without, or public dollars will have to support them. So,
Well, and the thing of it is, excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner.
$100,000 versus a nursing home is about that long. So it's gonna have to come from somewhere, and you said it, public dollars.
they'll spend down, and then,
Yes,
and then they'll be our
absolutely.
responsibility.
It takes that long at a nursing home and 100,000's gone.
Well, even if
I
you
don't mean
move
that in a,
into an assisted living
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
home care and services in the home, it doesn't take.
and I mean, and once the financial picture is gone, well, we live in America, what else is there?
Right.
There's public, that's just what it is.
You know, and we'll live beyond 100, many of us in this group. So this is another concern and challenge to us who are doing planning and trying to inform people about this, is the changing family. Living alone will have major implications for retirement income, housing, and services. In 1980, 9% of women were childless. Now it has risen to 18%. So that percentage is going up, and when you don't have children, you don't have an immediate caregiver within your inner circle. There are more blended families, so we've yet to determine if the stepchildren are going to step up and work with both parents or just their own parent. Caregiving is a growing workplace, economic, and societal issue. Randy, you really hit that. It's very, very concerning. It goes on for a long, long time. Most caregivers don't self-identify. The long-distance caregiving is an issue, so people will have to pay someone to care for them, or neighbors will care for them, which all of us have done and would continue to do, but when it gets real intense, it can't be done by an informal group as easily. And as baby boomers grow older, they continue to get divorced at higher rates than their parents and grandparents. We don't know why, but silver divorces, as they're called. One person, when I presented that silver divorce concept, she said, well, that's one reason to dye your hair.
Or grow some?
So here we have the caregiver issue. And I'll just let you read this because I think it speaks for itself. There are many more of us raising grandchildren than there have been in the past. And 70% have had to make changes in their work situation. And I hear that story all the time when I work with people with dementia and Alzheimer's. Their daughter or son bring them to the support group or to the meeting in the community, and they've given up their really good career, and they're scared about going back. Eventually, mom's going to pass away, and then will they have the skill set to get back into the workplace, and how many years will they have to catch up? This is the price to the employer, or in many ways, but the employee cost is the largest single cost to employers due to caregiving is replacing the caregiving employee. Workday interruptions was a close second. So we put a dollar amount on this. So we looked at the numbers and we understand all the implications socially, economically. But what do people want as they face aging? Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this is what we all want, no matter what our age.
Stay in the home.
And we're finding that in building and developing communities for people over 55, as well as for young families, these are all the same for all of us. Which brings us to the concept that we work with a lot, and that is communities for a lifetime. Not communities for aging based on all this, but communities for a lifetime, that all those generations behind us, baby boomers, can benefit from. These are some of the alternative residential models, and I won't go into details on these, but it's very interesting that contractors are hearing from families that they want to build extra space for their aging parent to move in with them sooner rather than later. So I think our kids' generations are seeing, and we talk to our kids about it. The other thing that I'm hearing a lot out there is that people aren't having the conversations as soon as they should with those people that they want to know about what their wishes are, whether it's the healthcare directive or whether it's what they want. Do they want to stay in their home? How are they going to manage it? Those kinds of things. So these are some of the big issues that we're seeing, our staff and people across the nation are seeing related, the chronic health conditions. If you live to be older, right now, most people over 75 or 80 are dealing with multiple chronic conditions already. They're being treated for them, and they have a pretty good quality of life, but they've got them. Mental health challenges are going to continue to emerge because if people in our generation had serious mental health issues, they received treatment, but they were the first generation to receive treatment, and we don't know the long-term effects of some of those medications, some of those psychotropic meds, some of those things. Or they weren't diagnosed and they're self-medicating with alcohol. Poverty, we talked about the economic implications. Homelessness, Dean Lloydeld on our staff is real engaged with that whole support system for homelessness, and we're seeing a startlingly number of older adults who are homeless. They're very vulnerable in our local shelters, and they're living out of cars, and it's the mortgage got to be too much. They don't have a caregiver.
They're not chronic homeless individuals. The elderly aren't chronic homeless.
Situational.
They're situational homeless, and so he's on a couple homeless concerns groups, and they're trying to identify what are the root cause of these elderly that are now becoming homeless and trying to identify that. Under the chronic conditions, we're doing some target work under chronic health promotion, falls prevention, and also Alzheimer's disease. And Mary, along with Kathy Gilbright and Natalie Matthews from our office, are working on a project in partnership with ACT on Alzheimer's, where they're working with communities on becoming dementia-friendly. And Little Falls here in Morrison
There's
County
some interest here in Little Falls, so I'll
exploring
keep you in touch with that.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're having some meetings coming up. Sartell is now moving forward. They're just beginning their effort. Becker is established with, I received some grant funding, and Painesville in our region.
There's
We've got 9
communities.
in our 14-county region, and that's growing because those folks with Alzheimer's and related conditions are going to be staying in their communities, and the law enforcement has to be aware of it. They get a lot of calls from folks, and we have the wandering issue with some of those folks. And so these are the realities. I guess I don't need to repeat them. You have the information. I guess all I can do is thank you for your job, for the work that you're doing. It's not easy. My mom was a county commissioner for 2.5 terms in Benton County, and she taught me the beauties of grassroots local government. And she was proud every day that she served. She was on the advisory council, and so Lori got to know her, and I have a feeling that she had something to do with me getting this job, but I can't really say for sure. But I love my work. So you have my business card, and you know how to get in touch with Lori. So if you would like more information on this, if you're having conversations with people where you need data, you need to state your case, sell your point, please contact us and we can help you with
This
that.
is great information. We
Yep.
appreciate all
So it wasn't redundant? You felt like I gave you something?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
You two do a good job there. Lori, you really do.
Randy said someone finally told him he's getting old.
Yeah, and I said, look, I look pretty good for 35.
You wish.
35 years this year married.
But you are the youngest on the
I'm
board.
the baby of the family. Mr. Zelinski's the.
Oh, you're younger than me?
I'm just a child. I'm a mere child.
I'm just about the youngest.
I'll tell you, there's comfort in knowing there's still a lot of us around. And we like it. It's just a demographic that the world has never experienced before, and it will never happen again. And one person said to me, well, once this is all over, then it's over, and then we don't need to worry anymore. Well, that's not exactly what we'd like.
And again, just to add, again,
Commissioner.
the baby boomers have probably, again, my opinion, have the best work ethic out there, because that's all we do is want to work.
Yeah, and you know, we've always done that to subsidize,
Yes,
you know, we always picked up a part-time job, or I did daycare at home for a while, you know, we did it. And it's frightening to me not to be able to pick up other work. you know, because I don't know how long I could do it.
Right, exactly.
When we were little, that's what we did. I mean, from nightcrawler picking to paper route to
Anything
selling
to
golf
make it
balls,
done.
it didn't matter. You just did it. You didn't have anything. So you had to go work hard.
And maybe that's why we're a little cheap.
But I didn't say that, that's not in the presentation.
That's right.
It's not
It
in-
was, what was your word, Mr. Chair?
Inexpensive.
Rather than rather than cheap, you said it was conservative.
We're conservative, there you
That's
go.
right, we're conservative.
Thank you again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, ladies.
Thanks again, appreciate it.
Have a good day. Public Health, Katie,
That point.
you've been here a long time.
Morning.
How's everyone doing? Wonderful. Good morning, Dad.
You may begin.
Are you beginning?
Yeah.
Go ahead. They want to leave. They can. We got a
So-
quorum here.
Sounds good. The first thing is to appoint, it's Corinne DeLong. She is the health supervisor for TCC. I mentioned that we had a meeting and we're going to start sitting on each other's boards to be more active with each other's organizations. So it would be to have her serve as an ex officio member at this time in the registered nurse position.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
And questions, explain that to me.
Explain what?
The ex officio.
It basically just means they're not getting paid.
Or voting,
Oh,
Mr.
okay,
Chair.
okay, I see, okay, very good, I understand now, okay,
And
thank
Mr.
you.
Chair, if I could too, it's been an effort that Katie's put in place, and I think a good one, to really work with TCC a little bit closer, find out what they do and what we do and where our efforts could be, I don't know, joined is
Joined,
necessarily
yeah,
the right
yeah,
word, at least
yeah.
aware of, and I think a lot of times when we know and we're aware of what other agencies are working on and their focuses, we can help supplement that way, can add to it. Our expertise in our areas are very similar. So I've appreciated that effort in terms of really trying to work a little bit closer together.
We have a request, gentlemen, do I have a motion?
In a second.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we,
I
Oh, I'm
made,
sorry.
Oh,
I seconded it.
okay, sorry, gentlemen, further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
All right.
The next item is
I didn't hear.
so it's to rescind the old joint powers agreement
Oh, hearing loss.
and then to approve the new joint powers agreement that would be effective July 1st, and then to approve the delegation agreement for the CHB that would be start July 1st.
Mr. Chair, I have a
Yes.
question there.
Yes.
What we talked about last week.
Yeah,
There was questions on the board, that's in the bylaws.
Right,
Katie?
so the meeting dates, the question that was brought forward last week about how often meetings are, when they are,
Yep.
that's wrote out in the bylaws, not these
The
particular.
voting members will be the two on that board, and not saying we might not have a meeting once a year, just to let the rest of the commissioners know what's going on.
So
I think that was
an
brought
annual
up last
meeting,
week.
and that would be good, I think.
Yeah.
Keep
and
everybody-
Less
we're gonna be-
meetings,
and we
good.
gotta,
No, well, not that, no, the annual meeting, I think, for
Yeah,
everybody, that's very
and we've got a
important.
meeting tomorrow.
I mean, less meetings with everybody
Right.
to make it
Understood,
easier for
understood.
everybody
No,
to
I
come.
agree,
Yeah.
I agree. yeah.
Right,
Okay.
and we have a
Mr.
meeting
Chair,
It's
tomorrow.
2:00 tomorrow.
Commissioner
Would
Winchell.
these three all be in one motion, or do we have to do each one individually?
I'm
We're gonna
fine
do
with
them all
one. I
together,
think
are
that
you
would.
guys okay with doing them all together?
Yep,
All right, other
Also moved.
discussion.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second, further discussion. Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
motion for less government, that's good.
There you go. That's, amen to that.
All right, and the
Less
next
personal.
is about the full-time support staff that we talked about at planning, as to provide support to CTC, the DFC, and the SHIP programs.
And Mr. Chair, if you recall, right now, we have somebody filling in with the CTC at 20 hours, working out of our clerical pool, because we didn't want to hire full-time, or hire permanently at that time, to give Katie a chance, and John a chance to look at the accounting and the numbers and where we're at and the grant funding. So abilities and work necessity really, or,
Right.
you know, the workflow and whatnot. And so there's been some time to take a look at that. And Steve Messerschmidt, me, Katie, and John met the other week with a plan to put in place a full-time staff and advertise that to cover this clerical support duties within these different programs, and there's funding there to cover that.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Mr. Chair? Katie, this is grant-driven
Right.
as it is right now, period. It's grant-driven. I mean,
Correct.
if the grant dries up, the grant dries up, but it's
So-
grant-driven, has been.
Right. So the CTC grant is very stable, as we
Yep.
talked about, and
Yep.
the SHIP got funded for next year. The only one that will be coming up next year is the DFC,
Yep.
and not to say that we won't have some other grant by that time.
Yep.
But we even have more work above what this position is going to cover, so I feel really confident that we will have work even after the DFC is done.
And it's Katie's job to make sure there's funding to go along with that
Right.
work that's there.
Mr. Chair, I'll move on that.
A second.
Have a motion and a second on the floor. Other discussion, gentlemen? Having heard none, just some questions and just some clarification, Katie. We had talked about this, and there was a former position that we did not fill, correct?
Correct.
And so we're incorporating this with a different position. So in reality, we're probably about where we're at, probably less than what we were before this all happened, right?
Correct.
Yep. So this isn't really creating a new position other than combining a couple of smaller things that,
I think it was really a good thing that we took the time to look at if the work was there. And now we do realize the work is there, and we need somebody to do some duties around these 3 programs that isn't getting fulfilled.
Well, Mr. Chair.
yes, Commissioner Jelinski.
Unless I'm off base here, but as I recall, this is part of your transition in learning and finding out what we needed and what we don't need.
Right,
And what you did was you found this, but you also found that there's a funding source
right.
that goes along with it. And I think that's admirable, to be honest with you.
Changing.
That's doing something, that's knowing that there's a funding source before just, oh, we gotta hire somebody.
Commissioner Johnson?
Changing job description too.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Chair, that's what we did. When there was that
Right.
vacancy before, we did
Right.
quickly hire
Right.
on that.
Right.
We had made that
Now we
decision,
just-
that was slightly before Katie coming
Yeah,
on
it was
board.
before me.
But making that decision knowing, I knew somebody was coming in place, I knew a new director was coming, and to really take a closer look at what was going on with financial and staffing levels. And that's what we've done. And I think in the end, we refocused and
And that was, I really appreciated that.
Very good. All right, other questions, comments, gentlemen? Having heard none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the next is for environmental health.
sorry,
That's okay. Down a little bit.
yes.
It's to approve the 2015 new establishment license for Elmdale's Watering Hole Saloon.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Having heard none, just a question for you. You know, we've talked pretty in-depth about beverage server training, okay? In the past, and this is a new establishment apparently, or?
It's a new it's
Owner.
a new owner.
I see what you're saying. So I guess I just wanted to throw it out there that at whatever point we can start looking at that beverage service training and really incorporating that into this kind of a thing, so they know on the front end that that's a part of, or we
Right.
can make that a part of.
We actually put in a flyer about the beverage training in the license when we sent out the notice for that you have to renew your license. We put it in that.
As far as educational, that's suggested?
It was just says, this is what it is, and we're gonna offer it, so, and this is who you contact
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And
to get that kind of thing.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
I think a lot of the insurance companies, you know, they might not go through public health, but I think a lot of insurance carriers, you know, do it, and it might not do it through public health, but they might do it through their insurance carrier.
We're getting a lot of feedback
Sure.
from a lot of the establishments that their insurance companies are requiring them
Right.
through the training.
So that should be
Good.
the same thing as public health doing it, right?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
That they're requiring it be
Right.
done. I think public
Yeah.
health they may be still coming to you to have it done, but they're
Yep.
requiring, and I just think we need to really start moving towards
And I know-
that
yeah.
as being a part of the
Yeah.
license. When we get someone new who's starting in, if that's a part that's there, they know it's a requirement.
And I
At
know
some point, we want to
There's
look
some
at
of the
that.
insurance companies that do that also, you know, doing their own.
Sure, great. Okay, just a suggestion. All right. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I actually have one more thing for you, but
Oh,
this,
there's one more. Oh, yeah, sorry.
this one didn't make it.
Sorry, never mind.
What you thinking, Randy?
So we,
Do
you have another?
Last one here.
we had a public health nurse resign on Friday in our maternal child health. She's going to be done as of June 19th. She was working in our nurse family partnership program. She was a full-time public health nurse. As you can see on the paper, the position is funded through insurance companies, local public health grant, Title V grant, McKick grant, county dollars, kind of a mixture of all those depending on exactly what the nurse was doing at that certain time.
And Mr. Chair, I think we just hired a nurse in the maternal child care
Maternal child health in
division, so to speak, in
February?
February. It was a nurse that actually had previously left and came back to work for us.
Oh, that was in April, yeah.
In April. So in that decision to kind of look at the staffing level for the maternal child health programs that we have at that time was made, the circumstances haven't changed in that I think, we continue with the program. The Nurse Family Partnership has been, it's a really outcomes-based program where we concentrate heavily on those high-risk families and folks that really need more direct interaction versus a philosophy that used to occur in which we touch everyone in terms of go out and look at folks and all those that have had babies and allow that to be a little bit more of a widespread effort. We're really focusing on those very high-risk folks, and we find that interaction and the science behind that interaction helps in the long run with costs and with raising those child and those successes, those families. So the recommendation comes with moving forward with continuing with this position and continuing with that program and get somebody on board sooner than later to get trained.
Questions, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Can
Commissioner Zelinski.
can we work off of the last hiring group, or can you not, or does this have to be posted and?
It's been a couple of months. I guess I'd suggest posting it again because we didn't have a huge response for nursing staff.
One of the differences with this program is the nurse has to be a public health nurse. They can't just be an RN.
Very good.
And I don't feel like I don't think we even had very many at all public health nurses the last time.
And the public health nurse component, it's interesting, we talked a little bit about in our previous presentation about pay and nursing pay. It's sometimes difficult with public health nursing. We've seen that and it ebbs and flows. The hours are great in comparison to a hospital who work in night shifts and weekends and things of that nature, but the pay is quite different. And so we continue to monitor that. Again, we've had folks, those that have left in the last few years have left for various reasons, not most of which were the primary reason was pay. There were different opportunities, different scheduling things, things of that nature. So, we're keeping an eye on it as we do everywhere in terms of retention and recruitment issues that we have, and we'll see how this go around, what it produces, and we'll go from there. But it continues to be looked at.
And Mr. Chair, I believe,
Yes,
Ms.
Commissioner.
Gruber, you answered this also, is that this person deals with high needs
High risk.
babies?
High risk
babies?
pregnant mothers and then newborn, all the way up to age 2. So that nurse will follow that client from pregnancy, from 25 weeks pregnancy, all the way until 2 years old.
And this is something, of course, that infant, if you will, has no control over it. It's just how it is. It's part of the world we live in. It's just somebody needs to take care of that person. Is that correct?
Well, the neat thing about the NFP program is it's really evidence-based. So they have the data to prove that the programs they implement and the education, the type of education, they don't just throw it out there and say, try this, try that. They've actually proven that these programs that they implement for these pregnant mothers and mothers of new babies work.
And
Breastfeed.
this is an income-based type of
Well,
a scenario, or?
It's
Yes.
referral-based. If we hear of, do they do income-based? I mean,
It is income-based.
It is income-based,
It is
okay.
income-based.
Oh, well, there you go, I was wrong.
You have to have high risk, it's income, and you have to be a first-time mom, and you have to enroll them in the program. It's 25 or 28 weeks, but I think it's 25 weeks. You have to enroll them in this program before they are 25 weeks pregnant.
I will support this, and I will make the motion.
I have a motion on the floor, gentlemen. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion to second, further discussion. I have a couple questions. First of all, what percentage of county dollars are being utilized for this possession?
I'm not sure, but I can find out for you exactly what, I can't give you an exact.
But roughly?
Probably not a lot. We have a lot of different grant programs that go into this. So, and our insurance amount that we get went up this year. But I will find out exactly and I'll email you guys.
Okay, very good. And the next thing is I think our state legislator was here talking about that, the importance of really providing support for people and young parents when people are young, when these children are very young, so, and how far that goes in the future, in their future. So, yeah, we really need these types of services, so.
This program was actually mentioned when they passed the bill, was part of the bill, the NFP program specifically, because it's the only evidence-based program out there for this population.
Other questions or discussion, gentlemen? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks, Katie. Have a good day.
Thank you, Katie.
Our county auditor, Deb.
I'm back.
That's good.
A couple of items. The first one is the renewal of the 2 a.m. closing for the Morrison Bar and Grill or the Steel Horse Saloon. And then the second item is to approve all the renewals for the liquor licenses for July 1st. And we're still waiting for 3 more to come in, but this is the rest of the list.
Mr. Chair, if I may, this is the kind of one I was looking at. The 2 a.m. closings, I see Little Falls is trying to back this to 1 o'clock, correct?
I saw that in the paper, but I have not contacted, I thought of
Right,
that.
and then, you know, again, who's the one that determines 2 a.m. or 1 a.m.? Is it a board, or who, is it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mr.
they,
Chair.
they have to apply for it and you have to approve it.
Because again, from years gone by, you always hear occasionally people say, well, God, we can make it to Morrill or someplace because we close.
Yep,
it,"
that's right.
You know, see,
Yep.
so I don't know, is Piers and I don't even know if Royalton, when they close, you know, so, I don't know, is it same everywhere? Or
Every city's different. And
which is kind of foolish, I think.
I know Swanville has a 2 o'clock. Swanville has a 2, but my question for Deb is, Little Falls, they've chose to be 1 o'clock, am I right, the city?
They're 2 o'clock now.
They're
but I
2
think
o'clock
they wanna
now,
bring
but
it
they're
back to
talking
one.
about,
They were 1 before this, so,
It's gone back and forth.
yeah.
okay. So are all the bars in Little Falls 2 o'clock now?
I believe they have the option.
You have the, okay.
I don't
okay.
know if they
Yeah.
all are or not. I mean, they monitor, they regulate the
Because
in-state bars.
out
I
in
would
the
assume
country-
that given the option, most of them would choose to stay open until 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Because they're gonna make more money that way.
Okay.
But, you know,
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, there's a cost to it.
exactly,
Yeah,
there is a cost to
because-
keeping their servers there.
You're right.
If during the week, they may not have any business, you know, and
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Wilson.
What's the opening time? I mean, we have a closing time, so there's gotta be an opening time.
true, and I'm not sure what that is. I would have to check on that.
3 o'clock in the morning.
You gotta leave for an hour.
I heard it was 8 o'clock.
I think it
Yeah,
is.
I'm not
It
positive.
Probably is.
I think it is.
But I mean, as long as there is a closing time, there's gotta be an opening time.
You are correct, there is a time, but I'm not sure what it is.
Then I guess I wonder if they get a later closing time, if they're changing or moving their opening time a little later, because there's not as much business in the morning. I don't know, I'm just.
Mr. Chair, I'd imagine that depends upon what their food service is that
Oh,
goes
okay.
into
Yeah.
that.
There's other things.
Right.
This has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
And
sure
question
does.
for you, Brian, do you see, or is there ever been any studies done on later closings as far as more DUIs, more drinking and driving, more impacts or effects? I'm just curious.
It's not the topic that I've researched.
I was just wondering, And you add an extra hour in the end of people drinking,
Off the
or
top of
like
my head,
Randy
I
said,
don't
I think Randy's concern is if you got bars open at 1 here, and they got 15 or 20 miles to make it to the next
Right.
bar that's open till 2, is
I
that an
know.
issue? It could be.
It's certainly something to look into.
Yeah. And Mr. Chair, these renewals, this topic runs by the sheriff, runs by the county attorney, and there haven't been at least enough issue that it's been something that's elevated in their concern, and they've recommended approval for that. So if there's a pattern, or if there's things that
I just think it should
commonly
be,
occur.
maybe, again, my opinion, maybe make it universal, what the heck, if it's 2 o'clock, and no, or 1 o'clock, is this kind of strange?
Well, and I think that was part of the issue with why Little Falls changed, because
Yeah.
out city, I don't know if that's the right word, we're going to 2 AM, and they lobbied, and this board allowed for that to occur, and there wasn't an issue. Well, then they looked at the competition and went and changed theirs, and now they change it. I mean, it's different regulatory bodies and different people with different philosophies, and that can change too, but,
I think ideally, every jurisdiction would be the same, but we
Yes.
can't control what the
Right.
cities
Yes.
do.
Right.
but,
And right now, a lot of the jurisdictions are different.
well, it
Yeah.
seems to be the case.
They're maybe they're going more to the 2 o'clock, but I know before, when Little Falls was always one, there was several other ones that were one also.
Right.
And I honestly don't know what Piers, Royalton, any of those smaller
Yeah, I
cities
don't
are.
know. But again, I see, because Morrill is in the
Yeah.
county's jurisdiction,
Right.
but Piers not.
Yep.
you know, that's-
And I know the city of Swanville has been 2 o'clock for quite a while.
And Mr. Chair, just for your
Yes.
information, before any of these are brought to your attention, the sheriff always signs off on all of them.
Yep,
Okay.
also move.
On
Well,
the-
just
Mr.
let me
Chair, do this
clarify,
separate.
and before you move,
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson, do we want to, because one is a request for let's see here, 2 AM closing, and the other one is to approve all the licenses. I wonder if we shouldn't do those separate?
Do them separate, that's
I would
fine.
think so,
That's fine.
So which one would you like to propose
What-
initially, Commissioner Johnson?
What do you want to do first?
I guess in the
How about
order is fine.
number
that
one?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, number 1.
Okay, so
Okay.
I have a motion to renew the 2 AM closing time for Moreland Bar and Grill.
Yep.
And a second. Further discussion? Having heard none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the second one, approve the annual renewals of liquor licenses, July 1st.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion, gentlemen? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, thanks, Deb. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Oh,
Do you want to approve the warrants?
Yes, let's do that.
also move on the warrants,
It's everything. All right.
everything.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
And I.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thanks, Deb. Have a
Thanks.
good day.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your work on the lid stuff. Appreciate it. Yes, Deb,
Mr. Chair, we've been lucky enough in the last number of years that the American Legion, Little Falls American Legion, donates the flag that we fly here at the Government Center. So there's a thank you letter that I'd like to have the chairman sign and send over to, the
I would
American
so
Legion.
move on that, Mr. Chair.
motion and a second. Yes, we got him. Any further discussion? I would like to know, or it to be known that we really appreciate that. These
It
flags
is.
are so important, and
Yep.
my dad having been a veteran, I mean, when I see these things, it's just, it's very heartfelt, so, very good. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And thank you to Commissioner Johnson for your service.
You bet.
NJPA, Mr. Chair, I'd
Yes.
like consideration for a voting membership agreement. National Joint Powers Alliance is a purchasing agency that we're a member of, and they have, since updated some of their memberships and how they work with their folks that participate in the program. By default, being we're a regional 5 county, we're a member and able to participate, and the purchasing membership is what I'm proposing. It really doesn't do anything other than formalize the fact that we can be, purchase with them, a part of them, participate with them, but doesn't take on any type of liability or anything like that with the organization. And Brian and I worked together to take a look at this arrangement being what makes sense for Morrison County.
All right, I have a proposal for MJPA.
So moved.
Second it.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner
there's
Jelinski.
no financial obligation on behalf of anyone to be a member either. I just wanted to get that out there, that there is none.
And this doesn't require us to solely purchase with them or anything along those lines. It just allows for better relationship to be more formalized that we can.
And it's something, whether it's a coffee cup or whether it's a computer, a radio, a car, truck, whatever it might be, we can look to NJPA and maybe it's another avenue where
Yep.
we may
It's an
get a
option.
better buy.
Exactly.
Very good.
Further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain,
Okay. Do you want to say why you're abstaining?
because I'm board chair for NJPA, so.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I have a resolution that identifies, I guess that's the right word, the Board of Adjustment to be the Noxious Weed Appeals Committee. It was discovered that we don't have a Noxious Weed Appeals Committee, and if we were ever to need one, it would be a problem. So, statute allows for us to identify one. I don't know in the history that we've ever utilized a Noxious Weed Appeals board, but you can delegate that responsibility to the Board of Adjustment, and that would be the recommendation of staff to do so. This would formalize that situation if it were to occur and we would need one. And this would be if there is a noxious weed decision made within Public Works, and that would allow for citizens to have an appeal process that they'd go through to revisit that decision.
And this is a state required?
It's our responsibility as a
Yes.
county
Okay.
for noxious weed control, and then this would be the appeal process.
Commissioner Johnson.
Who is our weed control now? It's Public Works, right? Is it one certain person?
We used to have a specific agricultural inspection gentleman, and now that's kind of part of another position that we have. In which there's ever any spraying that would need to be done in the public ditches or anything along those lines, that stuff.
This was not just dropped on, we discussed this at our planning session and such. We did.
We talked about it.
Yeah, and Amy mentioned it to the Board of Appeals too, that, again, the likelihood of this occurring is quite minimal. However, we discovered, we don't have that identified, maybe we should.
So move.
And a second?
I'll second it.
And Commissioner Jelinski, discussion.
Discussion. Very good, thank you. Does this give the Board of Adjustments final say?
Yes.
Or, okay, it's not something that's gonna come back to the board?
No.
That's my question. Okay.
And it kind of goes along those lines where, again, you set rules, and for you to then,
I know.
it's the same thought process with, an appeal or a variance, and you set the rules.
Exactly,
and you know,
absolutely,
So,
absolutely. I
again,
just
the
wanna-
likelihood and chances are, it's never happened before, but again, there you go.
Very good.
And just a clarification for our county attorney, this is noxious weeds, not illegal weed.
You didn't know that, did you?
Well, I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you for that.
Because I think they used to deal with that under the noxious weed law when they'd find a wild growing and stuff. I believe they did.
I think he's
Where they
making
go
a
take care
little
of
joke.
it.
Kind of well versed in that.
I'm very well versed in a lot of things as a chemical dependency counselor for over 30 years, so.
This is all new to me as well.
Okay, very good. All right, thanks, gentlemen. All those in favor, do we say aye?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
All right.
Anything else?
That's all I
Yeah.
have for formal requests. If there's anything you guys need from me, let me know. Otherwise, forging ahead, living the dream, doing what we need to do.
Gentlemen, do I have a motion?
Schedules first.
Schedules first, that's right.
From May 15th until May 26th.
How about June?
June.
Oh, yeah, sorry, June, excuse me.
Let's go. Commissioner, would you like to share that with Commissioner Jelinski?
What's that?
What you just said to me?
I forgot.
Oh, okay.
June 15th to
Commissioner
26th.
Jelinski.
I missed it.
I said, you know what, let's have Mr.
Go ahead,
Jelinski
Dwayne.
go first, because then that kind of just takes care of the
Yeah,
rest of it.
I'll take care of it.
All right.
June 16th, 8:30 in the morning, planning.
When are we going from the 16th until when?
The 15th
We're going from the
until
15th.
26th.
15th through the 26th?
There you go.
Yes,
Wrote it
please.
down. All right.
17th, at 12:30 in the afternoon, I'm going to be attending the food shelf picnic at Lions Park in Little Falls. At 5 o'clock in the evening,
That's on the 16th?
that's on the 17th.
17th.
And this, also on 17th at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll be in Todd County at Hands of Hope meeting. On the 18th at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'll be at an Armor O&O meeting at Alexandria. At 7:30 that same evening, I will be at the fairgrounds at an Egg Society meeting. On the 19th, I intend on partaking in Chamber of Commerce's Friday morning coffee, which on the 19th will be at the Janushka Home Farm,
And how do you spell that?
Janu.
CHKA.
Yeah, pretty close.
JANUSCHKA.
What?
It's in the phone.
Yeah, it's in the phone book.
JANUSCHKA.
On the 22nd, at 2:30 in the afternoon, I'm to be at Stand Up For You, which is going to be at the middle school.
Is that 2:30 instead of
Two-
5?
Yes, 2:30
It's
in the
at the
afternoon.
middle school this time, huh?
Yeah, at the middle school. And at 7 o'clock that same evening, we should have a planning commission meeting, I believe. And that'll be at the government center. On the 23rd at 9 o'clock in the morning, we should have county board. At 6 o'clock that same evening, I hope I have this right, I've got Board of Equalization in the boardroom.
I think it starts at 6:30.
6 o'clock.
You
That's
put
Oh, 6:30?
6 o'clock, I
Is
got.
it
I got
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock,
I have 6.
at 6 o'clock in the
Whatever.
evening.
I wrote 6:30, okay.
Well, you can get there at
Maybe you're
6:30.
leaving at
You
No,
might
that's
be
all
done.
right, that's all right. Maybe I'm leaving at 6:30 since I'm.
No, I think it's at least an hour.
We gotta be there, yeah.
be there 1 hour.
At least 2 hours? Yeah, at least one, but
On the
whatever.
24th, I believe Commissioner Mauer has a public health meeting at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
He's gonna cover everybody.
And that's in the Public Health Library?
Public Health Advisory Library, yeah.
On the
That's good.
20th, I don't expect I'm going to go to that. I went to it last month and I was very good to go to a different meeting once in a while. I enjoyed that.
And
The
that's
20
here at the Government Center?
Yes, at the Public Health Library. On the 25th, we'll be in a strategic planning meeting in the city of Bolus, Minnesota.
From 8 to 4:30, isn't it?
Oh,
Okay.
8 to, yes.
Very good, I didn't know that.
7:30 to 4:30.
8 to 4:30. And I believe that's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson?
Okay, we've got planning on the 16th, and then Commissioner Wilson and I have community development at 12:15 on Tuesday, the 16th, 12:15 at Pine Country Bank. On the 17th, Commissioner Wilson and I have corrections meeting at 9 o'clock in Brainerd. And at 10 to 12, I've got a meeting, a Council on Aging meeting at the Whitney Senior Center. I'm probably gonna try to make both of them be a little late for that. When Lori was here, I talked to her. That's 10 to 12 at Whitney Senior Center. It's
St. Cloud?
it's White House on Aging or something it's called.
Yep.
Then on the 19th, I'm not sure, I might have, I don't know if I can make that one, shack meeting in St. Paul. I'll get back to you on that one. Then on the 22nd, we got P and Z, right?
Yep,
At
at 7.
7 o'clock?
7.
Board on 23rd equals, on the 25th, after the strategic planning in Bolus, I have a Region 5 meeting at 6 o'clock that evening in Staples. That's it for me.
Commissioner Wilson?
On the 18th, I've got TCC meeting at 5 o'clock with Mr. Wincher. That's all I have extra.
Commissioner Wincher?
Okay, on the 15th, we'll be doing the director's interview for TCC up in Brainerd at TCC at 5:30. I believe Deb and I have library budget meeting at St. Cloud from 3 to 5 on the 16th.
Okay.
And on the 25th, soil and water meeting at 9. And the rest we got.
On the 25th,
Yes.
Soil and water.
so you're not going to make that one.
Why not?
Yeah,
Well,
plus we got
I can-
strategic.
we'll see.
I mean, I don't care,
Yeah,
just.
but I just want to put that
Okay,
down there.
Yep.
Commissioner Wincher, did you talk about the, you said the strategic planning thing at the library?
The budget meeting,
Budget
yes.
Budget meeting,
Budget,
yeah,
yeah.
okay. All right, and we got here
I don't think we have a library meeting
this
for
month.
June.
I don't know. We have that one.
All right, let's see, the 15th, have MRCC, Morrison, Minnesota Rural County Caucus meeting here at the Morrison County Government Center from 10 o'clock till 1 o'clock in meeting room 3.
What day?
On the 15th.
Okay, so at 10
Next
o'clock.
Monday at 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Ron Kresher will be coming to that
Rural
meeting.
Caucus, and where is that at? Meeting room 3?
Yep, here at the Government Center. And let's see, we got the planning session. That. Airport Commission at 12 o'clock on Thursday, the 18th. Mississippi Headwaters Board at 10 o'clock on the 19th, up in Walker. Marijuana Prevention Committee at 1:15 at the high school on the 22nd. And Public Health Advisory,
What time is that? Prevention?
1:15
15?
at the high school. Well, that's usually here, I think, at the courthouse. Yeah, I think that's where it is. And then 5 o'clock Public Health Advisory on the 24th.
Okay.
And that should be it.
All right, great.
Very good.
One last thing, AMC on Thursday, this 11th. What's the address do we have? Where are we going?
Sherburne County Court.
It's right along when you're coming down Highway
Elk
10.
River's kind of big, so.
Yeah, well, north of there, it's on the west side of the road, am I
I think it's
right?
when you get to that traffic light, you make a right-hand turn, I think.
That's about 10 traffic lights.
Well, no.
It's north of,
Let me ask you,
it's on the north end
It's at
of
the
Elk
county
River.
courthouse in Elk River.
It's
Yep.
at the north end where the jail is over there.
It's over on the west side, somewhere there, right? North of, yeah, right off 10.
Right on 10.
You can see it.
Yep.
Jeffrey's riding with me, so he knows the stoplights.
Don't know that I do know exactly. I've been there.
Okay.
And it starts at 8 o'clock, am I right?
Yep, 8 till noon or something.
Yep, 8 to noon.
The first light coming in, or maybe it's before that?
Okay, other things, questions, agenda issues?
Yes,
Yes, Commissioner
Mr. Chair.
Zalinski.
I just got an email from Katie regarding the Nurse Family Partnership Program.
Yep.
Kevin asked what percent of county dollars are used to fund this program. It's 8.8%.
Okay, very good. Okay, thanks.
I would, if there's nothing else, I would so move for adjournment.
Second.
A motion and a second on the floor, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.